surrounding Baltimore. Don't ask him about preseason games, oh no. Stuffing things in Griffin Basso. Despite it being on the internet, he can call it what he wants, so Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Duke sucks.
Well, good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. And usually, if it was a Friday, that would mean that our Chief Grand Poobah would be sitting right next to me. But he's a little under the weather, but still wanted to join us this morning because we're going to do some celebration of Jim Henneman. He is, of course, Pressbox's own Stan the Fan Charles. Stan, how you feeling, pal?
I'm hanging in there. I'm battling with a second bout of shingles.
What the heck?
So I was unable to attend the service yesterday, which bummed me out. But I heard it was really well attended and a fitting send off for our friend Jim Henneman.
It sure was, and we missed you, and just a wonderful day. And that was, we had planned last week that we would try to make today a little bit more of a tribute, and we're still going to do a lot of that on today's show. And Stan's with us now for a little bit. Peter Schmuck's going to join us. Jim Palmer is going to join us a little bit later. Jayson Stark is going to join us as well, as we'll share some thoughts. Stan, I'll tell you, some of the most poignant things. Tim Kirkchin spoke last night.
Yeah.
And one of the things he brought up was, how so many Hall of Famers were friends with Jim Henneman, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Jim would throw a barbecue at spring training, and you'd look around, and there's Palmer, and there's Earl Weaver, and he joked about how one time his brother got to sit between Brooks and Frank,
right.
just at a barbecue that Jim Henneman put together, right?
Right.
And then he said something beyond. He said, but it didn't matter if you were a Hall of Famer or not, because when he said the word friend, he meant it. And that's what struck me, is that, yes, I share this with Hall of Famers. Jim Henneman is someone that I share a relationship with, the greatest baseball players of all time. It's just as meaningful to me as it is to them, and that's a really powerful statement about who Jim Henneman was.
Yeah, Jim was a very humble guy, and one of the Hall of Famers that he was most closely aligned with was Al Kaline from Baltimore. Pitched against Al Kaline when Al was at Southern High School. And I think bragged that he was able to retire him one time, something like that. But I've known Jim for a long, long time, and he's one of those guys that you just thought would always somehow be there, and he was for nearly 90 years. And he led a good life, and the respect that the people like Tim Kirkchin, Jim Palmer, and that ilk had for him speaks volumes about Jim Palmer. And I'd like, and I know you feel the same way, Glenn, about helping younger people in the business. And Jim, two of the people that are closely aligned with him and connected, and were really, very moved by what was taking place with Jim's health over the last 6 months. Were Michael Lesker, who told me that Jim sort of broke him in at the News American, and then that great story we had on PressboxOnline.com by the great Michael Janowski, went on to a career with the New York Times, the Miami Herald, but he was a sophomore at College Park, and somebody told him to get in touch with Henneman when Henneman had left the paper to go be the PR director for the Baltimore Bullets, because it was a substantial raise. And Henneman interviewed him and said, "How would you like to be my assistant
Unbelievable.
PR director?"
Unbelievable.
And that led to Michael Janowski's great career. Michael was tremendously moved over the last week or 10 days. Yeah.
And that story I had never heard before, and you can still read it at PressBoxOnline.com. And it is, that's the testament. And to stay on your point, what I would say about Jim Henneman is, Jim didn't get me a job. He didn't get, but like just his encouragement, just his going out of his way to tell me about something that I wrote that he read. And and I've joked about it with you. I would have this response of, "You're Jim Henneman. Like you don't need to do this."
Yeah.
But that's who he was. Like he just was constantly thinking about younger people and trying to have an impact on their life. It really it's incredibly moving to me that I was able to have that type of relationship with Jim in recent years. Someone who, was a ubiquitous part of me. Someone I read constantly when I was a younger man.
Jim and I had an interesting relationship because when I got on the air in 1983 and started doing a regular talk show, I was quite different at the time. I was pretty brash
No,
and
no.
very cocky, and long ago I dropped those things, but I thought I knew my stuff, and I was not afraid to tell it, to use Charlie Ekman's phrase, to tell it like it was. And Jim, that didn't sit well with Jim. Jim was a different generation, and
Sure.
I was a new generation, and it offended him. And we had some awkward times together. So I think he was very surprised when I reached out to him to be my first hire on the editorial side of Pressbox.
Wow, I did not know that was what your relationship was like.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah. But
um
I always had tremendous respect
sure.
for what a great writer he was and what a great baseball mind he had. And I would be amazed. We now, Rock Kabatko has been the thing in Baltimore, covering the Orioles for probably 15 years now, maybe
I think it's
longer,
longer than that.
maybe
Yeah,
close to 20 years.
yeah.
But I would be amazed. I'd go to spring training each year, and the things that Jim would write about,
Mm-hmm.
I would go, he's like 80 some years old, and he's seeing things that these young whippersnappers
Yep.
aren't really seeing, you know.
I,
And it was a great deal of pride that I had that Jim, penned his last work, with Pressbox, which, and his relationship with Pressbox has lasted 18 and a half years,
well, and was
close to 19 years,
and as you and I
over 19 years.
you and I would marvel at sometimes, and was still unbelievably sharp as he was writing. Like it was still must read every time that Jim Henneman wrote in the recent years.
And Jen Nelson did a fantastic job, sort of compiling a whole host of about a dozen or 15 pieces that he wrote that are up on the site right now. So, because they're there on the internet, but they're not there, unless you know where to look. So she did a great job at compiling some of the best stuff that he wrote.
Stan, I'll tell you, to the point you're making, one of my other favorite things that Tim said last night when he was speaking was when they were writing against each other, he would read Jim's gamers the next morning just to make sure that they were watching the same game, that he had actually seen all of the same things that Jim had during the course of the game, which was phenomenal.
I don't know if because it's your show, it's not
You're
mine.
good.
I had suggested to Griffin that you guys have Luke.
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't know if you're gonna or not.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to point out is one of the things when I was an English major in college, was the simplicity of how Ernest Hemingway wrote.
Hmm.
The short sentences, the simple stuff. And I think oftentimes in sports writing, we tend to overlook. We look at the content of what they're saying, and sometimes we lose sight of how well they say it.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to point out what a great writer Jim
No,
Henneman.
there's no question about that.
Yeah.
An unbelievable writer. And you allude to something else, Stan. The connective tissue that Jim really was, right? For the essentially the entire history of this organization. He literally wrote the book, right?
Yep.
But in that way, I don't know that there's more of a if Brooks Robinson, of course, was Mr. Oriole, right? But I
Yep.
don't know that there was a more of a dean of this organization and knowledge of the organization and connecting generations of this organization than Jim was. I'd be hard pressed to imagine who that might be.
Uh, the guy that's closest living now is probably Stetka.
Right.
In terms of his historical knowledge of the team. Um, and I'd like to put myself in a lower case, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been around and followed the Orioles since the '60s.
Right.
So I mean, I remember watching games in the late '50s when my dad had passed away when I was 6, and we moved to Baltimore, and I started watching this new team, the Orioles, because I had been a Washington Senators fan. So uh, Jim was certainly the the living historian of the team, but I guess Bill Stetka is the closest we have
Yeah,
now.
you're probably right, and you're certainly in. I mean, there's no doubt that you're in that conversation. I just,
Yeah.
man, like you associated when Jim Henneman was the Orioles in so many ways, despite the fact that
Yeah.
he never played, despite the fact that like he just there was something about that association. There was a connective tissue that came because of Jim Henneman, and it's wild because every time I would talk to Jim about his time with the Bullets, I it never really struck me that it was only 5 years, right? Like,
Yeah, I didn't even realize it was 5 full years. Yeah. Yeah.
and what an impact it had on him, and obviously, he speaks a lot about his relationship with Wes Unseld. Um, but man, like it is kind of wild to me that detour ever even really happened,
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And I had lunch with a bunch of guys about a week ago and got the word from actually Ross Grimsley texted me that Jim had moved into hospice. And I was sitting with Michael Lesker and I told him that. And Michael, of course, was very upset about that. But we talked a little bit about the difference. He said, Jim was probably making in 1965 ish. He was probably making tops $8,000, something like that, 8 to 10,000. And when he went to the Bullets, he probably doubled that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why it was pure and simple. It was an opportunity that he couldn't pass up for his family.
It's Dan the Fan Charles, not with us in studio, but with us via Zoom this morning. And in just a second, Peter Schmuck is going to join us and is going to tell us a little bit more about what Jim meant to the entire Baltimore sports media community. Stan, while I have a second here, I assume you guys are going to be back together on Monday. You mentioned Ross, Ross, and Lou.
It will be me, Ross, and I've got Dan Duquette scheduled.
Okay. I'm
And we're
familiar
going
with
to do
him.
something like 4 o'clock ish.
Okay.
And I kept Dan abreast of Jim's situation, and I think he sent some remembrances to Jim's daughter Margie.
I know.
And
I happen to know that Buck Showalter did the same.
yeah,
After we talked to him last week, he went out of his way, and I think that's to me a testament as well. Like that we talk about what a different era it was when Jim was so friendly with Hall of Famers, but Jim's impact did not dissipate in more recent years as baseball has changed. To your point, Dan Duquette, Buck Showalter, he was an important person to both of them as well.
yeah. They had a great deal of respect for him and his professionalism. And one of the things, Glenn, that echoes through when you talk to some of these former players is they could go out. It was a different generation back then. Now everything is so sort of orchestrated. Your time with the players is orchestrated, and I'm sure Rock has some relationship with players that I don't have today. But Jim Henneman could go out and have a drink with these guys and still cover the team and write about them, but keep certain things under wraps.
Right.
He had a really relationship that they respected with him.
Stan Ross and Dan Duquette, normally Luke Jackson, but Dan Duquette this Monday, right around 4 o'clock. Facebook.com/Pressbox Sports is how you can watch it live. YouTube.com/PressboxOnline or PressboxOnline.com/video if you miss it live. And as always, Stan's shows are brought to you by the Costas Inn, and we are getting closer and closer to the brand new Costas Inn.
I can't believe it hasn't opened.
I know it's been frustrating for them.
It's killing them.
I know it's killing them, but it is coming. Like, this is not one of those situations. It is actually happening. There will be a brand new Costas Inn coming to the racetrack in Timonium, and we are very excited about that. And,
hey, one little quick bit of news, by the way. One of our semi-regulars on those podcasts with Ross, who I've become friendly with, is Shane Turner, who is one of the players. I talked to Stetka about this. I think Shane Turner had one at bat for the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that would be an interesting.
How many Orioles have ever had
people that had one at bat with a team? But Shane Turner is going to manage the Hagerstown boxcars.
Oh, really?
Boxcars.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I saw. Did you see who's going to manage the Frederick team by chance? It's Preston Wilson is going to be the manager, right?
Like, Wilson's son.
Yeah,
wow.
Hell of a player too, right?
Yeah. Preston was a good player.
Yeah, absolutely. So Preston Wilson's going to manage. I did not know that about Shane Turner. That's
Shane Turner was in a lot of different capacities with those San Francisco Giants teams under Bruce Bochy that won 3 world championships, and he's a great baseball person.
Real quick, it's funny you bring up anomalies like that. I brought this up in a conversation this week and was very disappointed. So I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this. I once saw something that I think very few people have ever seen live in a Major League Baseball game. I've never seen a perfect game in person.
Right.
I've never seen. I once was at a Major League Baseball game that ended in a tie.
That's a pretty good one.
It's a pretty good one, right? And
that's a pretty good one.
I was telling the story. The story is that in 2001, I was a college freshman, and Cal Ripken's final game was supposed to be at Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And my buddy and I said, whatever money we have, because we were broke college kids,
right,
we're going to put it together, and we're going to buy tickets to go up to Yankee Stadium. And, of course, because of the tragedy of 9/11, they canceled baseball games for a week, and they moved those games to the end of the season. So instead of Cal's final game being that Sunday at Yankee Stadium, it ended up being a Saturday night in Baltimore.
Right.
But we couldn't get rid of the tickets. Like, we felt like the people that bought the tickets to the basketball game this week, then Caitlin Clark got hurt. They're like, wow, I spent $200 on a ticket, and now I can't even sell it for 20, right? That was where we were with these tickets. So we said, well, neither one of us had ever been to Yankee Stadium, so we said, whatever, we're stuck with these tickets. We'll drive up anyway. And it was miserable. It rained the entire time. And it was a 1-1 game, and after 9 innings, they said they delayed the game for a little while, and then they ultimately called it. And they said, we will finish it if it matters to the Yankees. If we get the next Monday and the regular season ends,
right,
and then we'll finish the game. But if not, then the game just ends the tie. And they didn't really want to do that because obviously there was the complication of, like, when was Cal Ripken's final game if they had done this whole thing. And he had been pulled, I think, after 1 at bat in that game.
Right.
So they never finished it. It didn't matter to the Yankees, and it went down as a tie. And it's just one of those really weird kind of statistical anomalies. And so I I was telling the story earlier in the week, and a buddy of mine said, "Well, do you think that you've seen the only tie in Major League history?"
Right.
And so I said, "Wow, that's." And so I went and looked it up, and I was like, "There've been something like 50 ties."
50
And
ties.
then
That's amazing.
I felt really stupid that I was
By
so
the
excited.
way, Glenn, speaking of inclement weather, there's an announcement about today's game.
Yep, correct. For those of you that that are very excited about the bowling shirt. And that's not really the reason I'm going tonight. I get one of my childhood best friends is in town this weekend, Stan. So we had been. I think we're still going to go, but the game has been moved up to 4:30 because the storms are supposed to start tonight in the 7-8 o'clock range. So game has been moved up, and we'll start at 4:30 tonight. And as you and I were talking before the show, boy, it has just been a kind of an unreal run of bad luck here weather-wise. Not that excuses everything that's happened with the team.
No, but luck plays a part in things, and the injuries and the gerrymandering of times of games all over. It's just crazy. I've never seen anything quite like this.
Stan, I
actually think it's smart of baseball to do this.
Oh, get ahead of get ahead of it. Absolutely. Why put yourself through it? And I know that then the teams don't like playing double headers. It really screws up your pitching. You now need 6 starting pitchers in 5 days. It's just.
Glenn, I know you wrote that piece a couple weeks ago, and we talked about it a little bit about changing the Triple Crown. Moving, separating. I really don't think the playing every team is worth the
I remember you saying
aggravation of sitting through games like the other night against the Cardinals.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and somebody would say, well, I know how to solve this. Put a roof on all the stadiums, right? That'll fix everything, but it's not really an option. I know the Ravens were asked. The Ravens did a tour of some of the renovations yesterday, and they were asked about it again. Like, hey, was there any thought to put a roof on? And they said, nope. This is the AFC North. We play football outdoors. And I said, all right. That's why you won't be seeing me at the stadium in December or January. That's not going to be an option for me.
You don't want to have fun, I guess?
That's exactly what it is, Griffin. Get back to me in 20 years. You tell me how you feel about it.
I'll always be ready for a...
Stan, I don't know what's going on with Schmuck, but we'll track him down at some point. But while I have you and before I let you go, just want to run over the weekend. The first real report about the Orioles managerial source was from Bob Nightingale, or the managerial search was from Bob Nightingale, who made it seem the wording was very interesting, and we had Bob on this week to talk about it. He said if the Orioles hire a manager in the offseason, very much alluding to the idea that Tony Mansolino has the opportunity to get the job. They said if they make a change, the leading candidate will be former Oriole Ryan Flaherty. And I love Ryan Flaherty. I do. Just an immensely likable guy. And this does not feel contrived. It doesn't feel like, oh, he's a former Oriole, we should bring him back. Everybody believes Ryan Flaherty is on the cusp of being a manager in Major League Baseball. My opinion, and it's just an opinion, everybody's got one, is that they need someone with a bit more chutzpah. They need someone that will carry a little bit bigger of a stick to kind of even out sort of the power balance within the organization between on-field and front office. Bob seems to think Ryan Flaherty might have that despite not having managerial experience yet. What do you think of the idea of Ryan Flaherty as the next manager of the Baltimore Orioles?
He would not be my first choice. My first choice would be, first of all, it's very important that the club decides the future of Mike Elias. In other words, if David Rubenstein and his group are firmly committed to Mike Elias, then I agree that it should be Mike Elias's, it should be mainly his choice. But if I'm picking the person I want to lead this team into the future, it's Skip Schumacher. I'm very impressed with the job that he did. And more importantly, I'm more impressed with what he did when the Marlins moved on and treated Kim Ng so shabbily. I think But I think you touched on some interesting things in your column about picking the manager sooner rather than later.
And by the way, I'm completely good with it. If it's Skip Schumacher, I would say let's do it now, right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're going to do it.
I don't think so either.
They're going to give Mansolino a lot of rope, at this point in time, and I think the club, that's the way they're headed, in my opinion. But look, if it's Ryan Flaherty, I think that's a risky move to hire a first-time manager when you're in Mike Elias's situation, because you don't often get three or four shots at this thing. So your number two guy, you really got to get it right. And I think Skip Schumacher. The question I have is, and that's the one thing about Brandon Hyde. I wonder if his relationship needed to be more. He had more input.
Yep.
Not fully like Bill Parcells said, well, I got to go shop for the groceries.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if he had much input in the roster construction. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want your manager to have say-so in that roster.
And that's very much part of the reason why I like to see a manager in place before the offseason, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'd like for that manager to be able to say something a bit more definitive about Heston Kjerstad, about, Kobe Mayo, about, Kelton Cowser, and who's going to be a part of this moving forward. And that all goes into that opinion that I have. And I get it. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to do it. And the people that I've talked to, I think you're right. But I think there would be inherent value in there's some pretty good candidates available. I'd be willing to make the trade of, even if you don't have the fullest group of candidates, a good group of candidates, I'd like to get that time that manager could spend with this team this season to sort of start getting things in the right direction.
And I'll just say this, I have still a great deal of respect for Mike Elias, but I think that Mike needs to widen his inner circle to include some real, what I call real baseball people.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to puncture this, that statistical people like Sig and his team don't have a place in it, but I'd like to have some real scouts,
I agree.
as part of this.
Yep. I agree. Stan, I had to tell you, our friend Patrick Stevens is listening this morning.
Yes.
And he quickly found that there are 51 Orioles all time who have recorded one at-bat in their career.
51.
Now, I didn't think about it.
Did he give you the entire list?
I've got the whole list. The majority of them are pitchers.
Okay.
So that makes sense, right? Like the majority of them.
Was Shane Turner?
Shane Turner is one of them, yes.
Yeah.
But the list includes the likes of Matt Albers and Darren O'Day and T.J. McFarland and lots and lots of pitchers. It also includes luminaries like David Banuelos, that catcher that was on the roster for like 6 seconds.
Him.
The prize of the Manny Machado trade, Yusniel Diaz, is on that list.
He had one at bat with the
One
Orioles?
at bat with the Baltimore Orioles. Here's the Lou Piniella, one at bat with the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
And then the one that maybe jumped out the most at me on this list, your friend apparently stole a girl from you. Rex Hudler had one at bat with the Baltimore Orioles.
I would have thought he had
right,
many
100%. I absolutely thought there was a longer run. Are we doing this now?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
we'll
let's
figure out
start
how.
with
I don't know how we're gonna make the whole show work. We'll go from there. A couple minutes late, but Stan, can you stick around for a couple minutes to chat with Peter, or do you need to run out?
Can. No,
All right.
I sure can.
Joining us now here on GCR. Got to see him last night, and always good to see his face. Someone else that we care about a great deal, and a longtime Baltimore baseball writer. He's still writing at BaltimoreBaseball.com. Our friend Mr. Peter Schmuck is with us this morning here on the program. Schmucker, always appreciate taking the time for us. Thanks so much for hopping on this morning.
I'm sorry I ran a little late.
Yeah, we'll find you later. We'll figure out how to take it out of your check.
The kangaroo court will get him.
Peter, it was good to see you last night. Obviously, the circumstances. I wonder if you could share, as someone who was a contemporary, and I also imagine, like, being a couple years younger, maybe the story is similar to how I feel, that your relationship with Jim Henneman, what he meant to you in this business.
Well, I didn't kind of grow up with Jim. I came here in 1990, but I did meet him probably 10 years before that when I was covering the Angels for the Orange County Register, and Jim was always in the press box at Memorial Stadium, and he made some of the road trips, and so we got to be friendly. I don't know that we were friends during the 80s because I just didn't see him that much. But as soon as, he was one of the reasons I felt comfortable when I came here. I already knew him. I already knew a number of the people there at the time, Mike Litwin and Mark Hyman and Ken Rosenthal and all of them. I knew the staff, so it was very easy to come here. But Jimmy was special because, number one, he was a father figure to everybody. I may be too old for him to have been a father figure for me, but he was 20 years older than me. He's just Jim Henneman. I know that's funny. People say to describe him. I like to say that he's the only person I've ever known that everybody who ever met him liked him, and everyone he ever met he liked. And he just was unbelievably friendly, unbelievably knowledgeable about baseball, loved journalism, loved sports of all kinds. He also was PR guy for the Bullets back in the 60s or early 70s. And so, it's, when a guy's 2 months from his 90th birthday, there's all bets are off anyway to some extent, but it's still very, very sad to lose Jim.
Peter, can you, one of the things that Stan and I talked about, like the way he wrote, I think about Jim Henneman, the person, a lot in my life because of what he meant to me as a human. But the respect that you had for him as a writer, I know Tim spoke about it last night, that I said to Stan that the line that I loved was I would go read his gamer the next morning to make sure I had watched the same game. But Jim, what blew me away is even when he was writing for us in later years, remained incredibly sharp. As someone who was very good at this, what would you want people to know about Jim Henneman, the writer?
Well, he was a guy who that was accessible to the readers. I always hate that word accessible, but critics use it when they talk about musicians. That record's accessible, but it's really the only way to describe it is that he knew what they needed to know. And he had this instinct for what they needed, what they might not know, as opposed to everybody in Baltimore is a good baseball fan. They're all knowledgeable baseball fans, but then there's another layer of baseball, and there's another layer under that. And he could go to the lowest level, and the lowest level would be a level above me, and I've covered baseball for 40 years or 50 years, whatever it is. I hate to stop counting a while back, but so he knew the part that the fans needed to understand, and if they didn't, he could help them do that. But he also understood that you can't get too far into the weeds, and so it's the game is extremely complicated. It's a simple on one level. It's a simple game. You hit a ball with a stick and you run around in a circle, and then you go down level after level after level, and it just gets more and more complex. And Jim understood it all. And when he was dealing with guys like myself, I'm a fairly experienced baseball writer, one of the more experienced there is in the world now, just because of age. But when I would pop off in the press box about something and I was wrong, or he thought I was wrong, he had no trouble just completely setting me straight.
Wow.
And the great thing about Jim was when he was done setting you straight, you had enjoyed it. It wasn't like he was talking down to you. It wasn't like he was lecturing you, but you realized that Jim Henneman played baseball, coached baseball, wrote baseball, lived baseball. And I had such a fantastic relationship with the players and the general managers, and not because he was easy on them. He just had this way about him that as Tim Kirkshin described last night at the memorial service, he used to have his barbecues back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And when I first got there, the last few that he had, I was involved in the last few that he had. And the amazing thing was, we think of players is always trying to avoid us. When he had that barbecue, they all showed up. They all came to Henny's barbecue, and the general managers, the owners, if they were ownership people, they all showed up for the Henny barbecue, and he took it very seriously and had great food, and he put everybody to work. The other writers, it's like when I was new there in Key Biscayne my first year, he said, barbecues at such and such time. You got to get there early because you're cutting the eye roast, meaning it was the eye of round roast that he always made as part of the food, and it had to be sliced really thin, and he'd come up behind me and not thin enough. He was attention to detail, but in a gregarious manner for a guy who was planning a party and enjoying the heck out of planning it and taking part in it.
Peter, I couldn't think of a better way, though, to describe him as a writer, as his relationship with the reader, as sort of knowing what they needed to know. That was a very perfect way to put what Jim was able to do.
No, absolutely, and a lot of us, and I know a lot of writers like this, and I probably fall in this habit sometimes. When you get an email, nowadays we get emails, if you get emails from readers and they may criticize your story or, think you're wrong about something. And a lot of times you are, but, that some writers have a tendency to dismiss the readers like they're just, like they're just stupid children. And he always respected his readers. He respected them when he ran into them on the street. He respected them in print. He respected them when they, contacted him, or when we used to answer mail in the old days in the newspaper business. That's just Jimmy. Everybody loved him, and he loved everybody.
We're chatting with Peter Schmuck here on GCR. Peter, it really, to me, it was part of being at the ballpark. And, I didn't go very often, but, when I went, I knew I got to see Jim Henneman, right? And Stan and I were talking about it a second ago. In a way, he had been kind of the connective tissue of the history of the Orioles franchise in many ways over the years.
Well, yeah. I mean, who else is around that could tell you what it was like to go to a Negro League Baltimore Elite Giants game, or an International League Baltimore Orioles game, or be there when the team came to town. He was an encyclopedia, and as evidenced by, he wrote something akin to an encyclopedia about Orioles history for the Orioles a few years ago, which was very good. You can still get hold of that, I'm sure, if you don't have one.
As we said, he literally wrote the book. Literally wrote the book.
Literally wrote the
about
book
the history of the Orioles, which is to me, and who else would have done it, right? Not to take anything away from the two of you, who I'm sure would have done fine jobs, but no one quite like Jim Henneman.
Well, the problem was that he could do it from memory. The rest of us couldn't.
Right. Yeah, right. He didn't really have to do any research. He was just scribbling down notes, and it turned into a book. That was what
and he did have tremendous recall. I mean, seriously, he did have tremendous recall. Sort of like Jim Palmer, who can remember every pitch he ever threw.
Right.
I'm just the opposite, by the way. Don't ever ask me a trivia question from 10 years ago.
Yeah. On the flip side, Jim Henneman could also remember every pitch that Jim Palmer ever threw, which is the
pretty much.
It's the remarkable part.
By the way, in a time where the racial divide was great in the 60s and 70s, his relationship with black athletes was really quite remarkable. I mean, that he was as friendly with Wes Unseld and Frank Robinson as he was two of the, mainstays of African American athletes in this city. So I also think it's important to give some credit to Jennifer Grandal over at the Orioles. Her, and I'm sure it was her and her team, but I suggested that the team find some way to honor him. And I was really talking about throwing out a first pitch at one of the playoff games a couple of years ago. I was thinking small potatoes. She and her team got together, and I think it's remarkable what they did for Jim in naming the press box after him. I know, Peter, you thought they were going to name it after you, but Jim got there first.
Yeah, Stan, I don't think anybody would want to have their press box named after the Schmuck. But yes, and I actually I talked to her yesterday, or I'm a little fuzzy. It was either at the ballpark a couple days ago, or it probably was the ballpark, but she was there yesterday too. To compliment her and the staff on how well they treated Jim, for years.
Yeah.
They treated him like a king, and he deserved to be treated like a king.
Yep.
And the organization, going back, 10, 15 years was not, and there's a period in that period, there's a period where they wouldn't have done that for anybody, where it wasn't really that kind of organization. And they just stepped up so much to recognize him on so many levels. And I saw Jennifer, and I don't see her very much because I can't go to the ballpark that often. And I just wanted her to know that we recognized it.
Yeah. I think it's important that she gets some recognition, and I appreciated the way that they lovingly cared for Jim these last couple of years.
And I agree with you 100%.
And the joy that he had being there every time. As he said, it was a place where he felt like home, and you could sense that too. Peter Schmuck, I have no doubt we'll have a reason to talk about baseball with you again real soon. Always appreciate you hopping on and spending some time with us, and it was great to see you even under the circumstances last night, my friend.
Thanks, Glenn. It really was. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care, Peter.
Peter Schmuck with us here on GCR. Stan, I'll give you a quick update. Patrick actually moved out all of the 13 position players that ever had one at bat with the Baltimore Orioles. 13 position players. Christian Pache last year, I forgot all about that, who they acquired in was that the Dominguez or the Soto trade? I can't even remember which one of the trades it was.
I think it was the Hayes one, right?
That was in the one with the Phillies,
so
the first one.
Yeah, the Dominguez trade.
The Dominguez trade.
It had one at bat, and then they said, "Nah, we don't really have room."
Yeah, we don't need.
Got Austin Slater.
That's the way that it worked. Stan, look forward to seeing you back in here next Friday. Feel better
to be
soon.
there next Friday. All right, buddy.
Appreciate you taking the time for us this morning as you're battling through
Have a good
man.
show.
Thank you, buddy. Stan the Fan Charles with us here this morning on GCR as we will continue to celebrate. We'll talk both baseball and celebrate Jim Henneman as the show goes on this morning. When we come back in, I guess we'll need to do TWIB. We'll do This Week in the Rest of Baseball when we come back in. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. This August, the PGA Tour's best are coming to Maryland. The 2025 BMW Championship tees off August 12th through 17th at Caves Valley Golf Club in Owings Mills. See the top 50 players battle it out in the penultimate event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Don't miss your chance to witness world-class golf, fan experiences, and unforgettable moments. Tickets are on sale now at bmwchampionship.com. The BMW Championship, where legends take the lead.
Discover luxury without limits at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. This April, unlock a world of high-fashion delights and exclusive style. Earn entries daily starting April 1st and join our drawing on Friday, April 25th. 19 will win up to $2,000 in cash and free play. And one grand prize winner will take home a curated Versace homeware collection. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at driveeasymd.com.
What makes the Costas Inn so special? This is Stan the Fan telling you that it's the people that work for you. Cooking, and serving, but that menu is also special with a capital S. Soups, salads, the raw bar, pasta dishes, seafood specialties, and entrees like the Costas combos, steaks, chops, ribs, amazingly delicious meatloaf, and all manner of delicious filling sandwiches, including pit beef and turkey and subs. Of course, the steamed crabs are as good as you can get anywhere, and they serve them 12 months a year. The crab cakes are out of this world. Costas is open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and coming soon, very soon, Costas in Timonium at the OTB Parlor at Timonium Racecourse. We'll get you the opening date real soon.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Want to improve your golf game or learn to play for the first time? The Baltimore Golf Academy has fun, instructional programs for the beginner golfer to everyday players. The Baltimore Golf Academy can take your game to the next level. Enroll today at baltimoregolfacademy.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right. It is a Friday, and on Fridays we try to check in on what's happening elsewhere in baseball. We need to do this. Aha.
This week in the rest of baseball.
This week in the rest of baseball is brought to you by Game Day Men's Health, where they're helping men reclaim their game. Complimentary testosterone test. I need to start with that, right? Because I would tell you that as I've gotten in my 40s and I felt sluggish and a bit run down, I genuinely, my first thought was, maybe I'm low T. You hear that phrase and you don't know exactly what it means, but you're like, yeah, I feel like I might be low T. But they're going to help you. You go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, you set up an appointment. You call over to Game Day Men's Health in Owings Mills, 443-264-4454, and you're going to set up your complimentary testosterone test. And if you're not low T, that doesn't mean there might not be other things that you want to talk about while you're there. The stuff that you don't like talking about with your friends. The stuff that, frankly, you might not even like talking about with your wife or your partner. The other things that perhaps you deal with as you get into your late 30s, your 40s, or your 50s. The stuff like that belly fat that you just can't get rid of it. Maybe it's the performance in the bedroom. Some people don't even they're like, I don't think I have ED, but it's just maybe not the same as it used to be. These are conversations that are difficult to have. But that's why Game Day Men's Health is meant for you. It's sort of like a safe space for men. And I'm on peptide treatment, and I'm telling you, even that alone, those proteins, I have felt better when I've woken up in the morning. It has been easier for me to get out of bed and get on with my day than it was. I just encourage you, again, GameDayMen'sHealth.com, 443-264-4454, the phone numbers for Game Day Men's Health in Owings Mills. Give them a call, set up your complimentary testosterone test, and go from there. Game Day Men's Health. What you got?
Let's see. Stars are coming back to baseball. We saw last week Ronald Acuna got activated off the IL for the Braves, and coming off of the ACL injury, and with his first at bat, the first pitch he saw, a leadoff home run for Ronald Acuna, and it was no doubter as well. Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
First,
welcome back.
I guess this is from OptaStats, first player in MLB history to miss over 150 games and then hit a leadoff home run in his first game back.
How about it? How about it? I
Okay.
mean, those are some pretty unique
Exactly.
Like
very
that's as much anomaly as it is accomplishment, but I don't want to say it's not an accomplishment.
So yeah, he came back. Mike Trout is expected to be activated from the IL today as well for the Angels. So he'll be back for another 2 weeks maybe.
How will anyone notice? This is I know it's rich, like us making jokes about the Angels, but like, still.
I don't know. Hopefully somebody does, and hopefully he just plays good baseball. But yeah, Mike Trout might be back. Byron Buxton might come back as well after his concussion against the Orioles. So that's what they say, the 3 best outfielders in baseball.
Are those the 3?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Trout and,
that's weird.
Byron
I
Buxton.
don't know that would be the list. But,
unfortunately, so in that specific game, unfortunately for the Braves, that was the only run they scored because they actually had a chance to tie the game in the 9th. They had a runner on second base, the tying run. They were down 2-1 against I believe against San Diego, and yeah, that was against San Diego. Eli White was the runner on second. He was the tying run with 1 out on second base. I forget who was at the plate, but they hit a single up the middle. It was like a line drive single, like it was gonna get down. So like you got a runner on second base. Eli White is also a pretty fast guy, so it was like, oh, they're gonna tie the game right here, and we're gonna get extras, or the Braves are gonna have a chance to win. For whatever reason, Eli White thought it got caught in the air.
And went back to second base.
But he started towards third
okay.
and then inexplicably ran back to second, and they ended up getting him out at second.
Oh, no.
Jackson Merrill was in center field, and he gunned him down at second base. And so instead of – or actually, he still got the assist, but he threw it in like he was going 4, but like the shortstop cut it off.
I haven't seen this yet. I'm trying to find it.
I'll figure out who.
Nobody have. Oh, okay. I got it. Hang on a second. I've got it.
I know Ben Verlander shared it.
Who comes flying in? That's actually a hell of a job. Merrill was throwing home.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say there. And yeah, so they cut it off, and then they get him out. So it was
wow.
I got it. A wild play. Yes, I'm playing it now. So now everyone else can see it. But yeah, it's a clear cut base hit. Like it's getting down no matter what. And then Merrill's coming home. Oh my gosh, Eli White went all the way to third
and then came back.
Yeah, and then he gets thrown out. So instead of tie game with 1 out and a runner, and a runner on, instead they've got 2 outs now, and the game ended in the very next at bat. So the Braves lost that one. So just kind of a little bit of a bizarre play there that I thought was worth mentioning. I guess if we did that bizarre play segment last week, so other bizarre plays. Also Friday night, we had another kind of crazy play in the Dodgers and the Mets games. We had an obstruction call at third base, and this one was on Max Muncy. So I'll play this one as I kind of talk through it. So we don't.
Did you see the same thing with the Reno Aces?
Yes, that was one. Yeah, that was the one.
That was last week.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
We did.
Yes, the one where the guy he hit a double.
Right.
And it should have been a walk off.
They threw the ball out of play.
Christian Pache was involved in that play. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
now I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember now. I don't know, man. There's a lot going. I don't know.
This one was more of a kind of typical play. It was courtesy of Apple TV, by the way. So a fly ball out to right. Teoscar Hernandez, runner on third. Teoscar Hernandez hoses him at the plate. Starling Marte tagging, and Teoscar Hernandez hoses him. So double play. They at least at first we thought it was a double inning-ending double play from right field down back to home. Instead, the third base umpire stops it and says obstruction on Max Muncy because he was standing in the way of Starling Marte apparently at third base. And I mean, it was just kind of a wild call. So this is the first angle. They're about to show the second angle where you can see that Max Muncy, I mean, I guess is technically in his way, but none of it looks like it's on purpose. It doesn't really look like it's affecting. So Marte is leaning to his right, and then he leans back to his left to lean around Max Muncy. So they ended up calling obstruction, and just kind of a wild sequence there. So a couple of fluky plays on last Friday, but I feel like fluky plays is a fun segment.
I agree with that. I agree.
The
Eli White thing is bad.
Yeah, that was tough.
Bad.
MLB announced, I believe it was yesterday, but earlier this week, they're investing in partnering with Athletes Unlimited softball. So they're trying to promote the professional softball league more. Kim Ng is the commissioner, so that their season's supposed to start.
A lot of people with the opinion that
June
I'm
7th.
seeing a lot of people with opinions that the Orioles should hire both Kim Ng and Skip Schumacher. Try to reunite them.
Just literally redo what the Marlins did in that brief success they saw in those two.
Again,
Maybe they'll be able to figure out Trevor Rogers. And
I don't think it's happening. I just don't think it's happening. I don't think they're moving on from Mike Elias, although, if this continues to be as unmitigated and rudderless as it's been, then I don't know what choice they could have. I keep watching this Max Muncy thing and keep waiting to see where the interference is.
So he doesn't actually touch him. They're saying he blocked his vision at third base, like on purpose.
That's what they're saying.
Yes.
Got it.
So since he's like, he is starting back and then he steps onto the edge of the infield, and so if you look, so Marte is like leaning to his right, like to watch the play.
I see. That to me is just called. That's just called gamesmanship.
I think that's probably also true, and
right.
also I
didn't
think
realize
it really affected it all too much.
I don't know.
I mean, from Little League, we're told don't watch the ball. The third base umpire is going to tell you
when to go.
Not the umpire, but the third base coach is going to tell
right.
you when to go, and you go when he tells you to go.
That's fascinating, man. I did not know that was a rule.
Yeah.
I did not know that could be applied as interference. So I learned something today.
Yeah. The women's college softball, since we're talking about softball, women's college softball World Series is going on right now. Last night was the opening round of we're down to the final 8, so they're all in where are they? They're in
Oklahoma City. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, you got Texas,
and
Florida,
and the
Tennessee,
atmosphere
Oklahoma.
is always insane.
I think we had 2 walk-offs yesterday.
Yeah,
like
it's
like
nuts.
Oklahoma had a walk-off, and I think UCLA walked off as well yesterday.
It was my buddy, the late great Pete Medhurst would always say, like, if he could ever do like one event, he always wanted to do the Women's College World Series, just because it just looks bonkers.
It does.
Like it looks absolutely nuts.
Since we're talking college diamond games, then the NCAA tournament for baseball,
it gets underway this weekend.
Starts as well. All the regionals. So I guess we'll shout out Arkansas maybe has a chance. We'll shout out. We'll shout out Arkansas for John and Little Rock.
You say so.
Since there's a Fayetteville regional, Arkansas is hosting. I think it's be Vandy. Vandy's winning it all. They're the number 1 overall seed.
Sure.
Hard to argue.
I'll go with that.
Tennessee stumbled down the stretch. Lost like 4 of their last. I think they lost all 4 of their last series. So doesn't seem likely they'll repeat.
If you say so.
You're not into the baseball at all.
Why
you're anti-baseball? Why are we doing this week in the
No, 2 things. When Maryland's in the tournament, I'm way more. It's the same thing I would say about like when people ask me about. Although I did watch the hockey game last night. Well, some of it anyway. The basketball game never was really all that good.
No.
And there wasn't a baseball game to compete with, so I could put it on 2 screens last night. Like if Maryland was good and relevant and competing, I'd be more in tune with it in general, right? And then secondarily, if the Orioles had a high draft pick, I'd be more in tune to watch the players that might be involved. Now, next year looks more and more like I'm going to need to be in tune with college baseball because it looks like they're going to have a very high draft pick again next year. But short of those things, it's just hard for me to have like any connection to the College World Series.
Do a quick prospect update, I guess. Marcelo Meyer, we obviously saw was called up by the Red Sox. Yeah. Orioles saw him up close and personal.
Jordan Lawler went the other way.
Yes, Lawler went the other way. So the other prospects that I think are more kind of like top-ranked prospects that we might see next, Roman Anthony, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball and also with the Red Sox. They're clamoring for him to get called up soon. They just haven't yet.
Oh, so real quick, we should show. Did you the Gavin Sheets thing where he pimped the home run, but he started walking the other way?
He started walking the other way?
You didn't see this?
I guess not. No.
Gavin Sheets was pimping a home run, and Gavin Sheets was like the nicest guy on the face of the planet, like legitimately a salt of the earth type of human being, who I've never noticed pimp a home run before.
Gavin Sheets pimps a home run.
He pimps the home run.
Oh, he starts walking. He starts looping
literally
around.
like loops around, and he starts walking down the third base line for like 4 steps, and then takes off. And it was a big home run. It put him in front. Like I think they were down 7-6 at that point.
He's been hitting a lot of big home runs this
year. Yes, he's already surpassed his career high in home runs. This season.
I kind of like it. The loop around.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he's like, whoa, got to start running the other way. Good thing that wasn't off the wall. Good thing that wasn't the case. Because he might have gotten a little bit of crap for that one.
Jack Caglione is the other one. Though Caglione just got called up to AAA with the Royals.
Yeah.
But he's just tearing it up.
I had a couple people send me video of him.
Every time he hits a home run, it's 450 feet.
Right.
And every time he hits a ball, it's over 100 miles off the bat.
People apparently the Royals put out a video of him like dancing along to All Time Low the other day, and everybody sent it to me because I guess I speak for.
You're Mr. All Time
Low.
Yeah. Jordan Lawler optioned. He got called up 3 weeks ago. He went 0 for 19. Stint with the D-backs. So unfortunately, that doesn't really cut it. Matt Shaw though has been up. He's a top 20 prospect. He got recalled and not a couple, but he had a walk off this week. Had a few web gems. So Matt Shaw's doing well in his return to the Cubbies.
For Matt Shaw.
And then figure out some other big ones. The Rockies still suck. They have 9 wins.
Yes.
They've also been swept 9 times this season. So there's number of sweeps, number of times
How about
being
that?
swept and wins. the same. They're on pace. Bob Nightingale.
What big losers. God.
Imagine being that bad.
Right? Imagine. It must suck to root for the Rockies.
They're also for the worst start in modern-day baseball history. This is from Bob Nightingale. So they're currently on pace to lose 136 games, which would obliterate the White Sox record of 121 from a year ago.
You're gonna do something.
So, yeah.
Do it well. My
Jose
dad always said.
Jose Ferrer, just trying to call out the top ones here. Jose Ferrer, he's learning to play saxophone in the bullpen for the Nationals.
Good for Jose Ferrer. We gotta move. We gotta.
Shohei Ohtani's playing, pitching, doing some live ABs
like that.
So we'll see when he comes back. And then the Dodgers also acquired Alexis Diaz.
Right.
Trade yesterday.
Right.
So they're talking about baseball news.
There you go. This week in the rest of baseball. Appreciate you keeping us abreast of all of those things. Hour number 1 of today's program is in the books. It's brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. We're going to be there next Saturday. I'm still piecing all the details together for this poker event, but it's going to be wild. There's cash giveaways, drawings during the event on top of the poker tournament itself, ticket giveaways, cash giveaways. We're just going to be having an amazing time next Saturday, and you're going to want to join us. We know that the NBA Finals now get underway on Thursday night, so join us for every NBA Finals game inside Sports and Social with great giveaways, electric atmosphere, delicious food, the 100-foot media wall, Sports and Social, Live Casino and Hotel. That gets underway on Thursday. The Stanley Cup Finals get underway on Wednesday in Edmonton. Into hour number 2 of today's program, another friend of ours here on GCR, someone who we're going to talk some Orioles with, but I also want to get his reflection on the life and legacy of our partner, Jim Henneman. He is from The Athletic, the great Jayson Stark, back with us now here on GCR. Jayson, it's Glenn. It's always good to catch up with you. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Glenn, my pleasure. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right, sir. Jayson, I wanted – yeah, you know. You know. It's not.
Season's going well. I get it.
It's not fun. Before we do that, if I could, because we celebrated the life of Jim Henneman last night, and as someone who spent a lot of time in Baltimore over the years, what did Jim mean to baseball writers? What did he mean to the sport on the whole to you, Jayson?
Yeah, Jim Henneman was a giant in our business, Glenn. I mean, they don't name press boxes after just anybody who's passing through that place. They named that press box in Baltimore after Henny because of what he meant to our profession. And I think just as much what he meant to everyone who sits in that press box every night. Mm-hmm. Here's what made Henny different. For so many people who have done this for a long time and risen to his level, they always make you feel like it's about them. That was not true with Jim Henneman. It was never about him. He was so appreciative of other writers' work and what they thought and how they went about it. He was just interested in everyone and everything. He loved baseball, and he loved baseball writing, and he loved baseball writers, and you never came away from a conversation with him without thinking that. At least I never did. So, he's just one of those people who leaves a lasting impression on every life he touches. And what a special thing to say about anybody.
It's so well said, Jayson. I'll tell you, like the first time in my life that I ever got a message from Jim to say, hey, I read this thing that you wrote, and I was like, wow, holy crap. And it was a big deal to me, right? And I was like, and I don't know who I said it to, but I said, I can't believe Jim Henneman went out of his way to say that, and I kind of got a chuckle. And whoever it was, and Lord knows who it was said, like, yeah, Jim does that for everybody. And, like, for a second, I thought, like, oh, maybe it doesn't feel. But in a weird way, it made me feel more about him. Like, that's just who he was, that he would go so far out of his way to make sure he had a connection with everyone who ever came through that room or was part of this circle. Like, he knew all of us on a friend level.
Yeah, it's so well said. And, I had the same experience when he would write me a note. Mm-hmm. Jim Henneman read me.
Right, right.
Jim Henneman liked something I wrote. That was a cool thing to me. And it was just so him. Yep. He was just one of those people who I would describe as a connector. He connected with everyone, and he connected connected everyone with each other because of just the way he was. It felt like he was so glad to see you. every time our paths would cross, it just felt like he made me feel like this was a special day for him because he ran into me. But I actually felt that about him. And he's been coming to Cooperstown every induction weekend over the last few years. As a member of that historic overview committee that nominates players for the ballot, he was invited every year, and he started coming. And so got to spend so much quality time with him up there, just digging in on everything about baseball, past and present. And it's just hard to imagine going to Cooperstown this July and not seeing him. It's hard to imagine walking into that press box in Baltimore without seeing him. Just one of the greats, Glenn.
No question about it. It was part of what it made it worth going and working a ball game in Baltimore is that, you got to see Jim Henneman. I appreciate it, Jayson. Thank you for sharing those reflections with us. Now, the Orioles. Jayson, I don't know, man. Like, Griffin told me that he was texting with you, and he said that this might be the most disappointing team you've ever seen. And I said, how am I supposed to argue with that? Like, it's one thing when the Orioles were supposed to be bad. We would just say, yeah, this is about right. I know that injuries are a part of the story. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's why it's hard for me to shake. I don't want to bring hellfire and brimstone towards Mike Elias, but we all thought the same thing in the offseason. Every single one of us said, what is going on here? What are you doing? And even then we didn't expect it to be this bad. But I don't know how to judge what has happened in Baltimore because it's just so bizarre what the thought process was after these last two seasons.
Yeah, I think this is the most disappointing team of the last 30 years that I can remember in baseball. Just because you just said it was not a season that anybody saw coming. They're on pace to lose 106 games. No team has done that a year after making the playoffs since those 1998 fire sale Marlins. And if the Orioles had a fire sale this winter, I missed that. Okay, so what the heck? I know some of this is obviously health, but some of this is obviously questionable decision-making, especially on the pitching side. And you look at these free agents. Have any of these signings worked out other than Sugano?
Right.
It's almost impossible to get less out of Morton, Gibson, Sanchez, and O'Neill than what they've gotten. And, when your rotation stinks, your team stinks. They've had the worst rotation in the American League. One of the things that jumps out at me is Yankee starters have struck out more than 100 more hitters than Orioles starters. And this is a season where the Yankees haven't had one pitch thrown by Cy Young, Garrett Cole, or Rookie of the Year, Geel, right? Heel. So think about that. And I think that sets the tone for your whole team. Yeah. When you're always behind, you're always facing the other team's best relievers. And so one thing leads to the next thing. The OPS of this lineup, when they're trailing, is 80 points lower than the OPS when they're leading. And isn't that a reflection of who you're hitting against when you're trailing? Seems like it.
Boy, that leads to an opinion that I've had, and Jayson, I'm telling you, this is just an opinion. I don't think myself more educated than anyone else when it comes to this topic, but my opinion has been that it feels like it has seeped in, that there is a malaise, whatever you want to call it, and maybe part of this is I'm so enamored with watching how quickly Buck Showalter was able to change the culture a few years back. But it makes me wonder, and I don't expect them to do it. I think they're going to wait till the offseason. But it makes me think that they need to hire a manager quick. That the culture is becoming a problem, and this is becoming more deep-seated. And every day that, Adley Rutschman isn't getting fixed, we are asking ourselves bigger and bigger questions about is there a window for this team to compete in the coming years with this core of players? And it just leads me to a place where I know you want to have a deep pool of candidates and the best pool of candidates you have, but boy, it feels like this is really a rudderless ship that needs some direction that goes beyond just wins and losses.
Well, have we seen any evidence that this was Brandon Hyde's fault?
No.
I understand why they let him go.
Yeah.
But if there's been any impact, it's hard to detect it, at least for me from afar.
Right.
And like they seem willing to go interim for the rest of the season, and you never know who that will put in play. The question is, are they already thinking we're punting this season? Now, you don't fire the manager to punt the season, but can you do the math? I can do it. Fangraphs is projecting 83 wins for the last wild card team. 83. So that's a really low total.
That's a 500
correct?
team, more or less, yeah.
Think about what it would take for the Orioles to even get to 83 wins.
A miracle.
They would have to play like a 109-win team the rest of the season. That's the winning percentage. So is that happening? And if it's not happening, then this is a lost season. So should you just let it play out, go into July, see what you can get for all the pieces that would be very interesting if they decided to sell, and then regroup this winter? I don't know who the right manager is. I don't know if Mike Elias will even be the guy making that decision, but I think we already see where this is leading, and another managerial change probably isn't going to fix it midseason.
I know what you're saying. We're chatting with Jayson Stark. I guess maybe if I made the comparison between the 88 and 89 teams, right? Like I feel like that something has to. Maybe my concern, Jayson, and I admit, this is the nice part about being a talk show host. I grew up here. I'm a fan. My kids are fans, right? They want to see the team win. Adley Rutschman's already into arbitration. Gunnar Henderson will be into arbitration next year. While I'm not trying to make it seem like their window is closed, it does feel like the lack of urgency is kind of what got them here. And I don't know. I think to me is Adley Rutschman going to get fixed with a lame duck interim manager in the same group of coaches that wasn't working when the last manager got fired? And I maybe I'm being too over dramatic about it, but this organization, I don't know that this group works unless Adley Rutschman becomes Adley Rutschman again. And so it just feels like it almost has to be someone's assignment, the way that in football you pair a head coach with a quarterback. It almost feels like that's what you need to find in your manager is who's going to be able to make Adley Rutschman again.
That's a really good point. Of all the things that have gone on with this team, Adley's year makes the least sense to me.
Yeah.
Last year was easier to explain than this year, wasn't it? I'm still not convinced he was 100% in the second half. He chased way too much. It was easier to see and easier to explain. But this year he's cut his chase rate on pitches out of the zone from a career worst to a career best, and still hasn't hit. He's seeing spin and off speed at a level that he's never seen before. And I don't know how we can explain why he's having so much trouble identifying it, let alone hitting it. If you look on Baseball Savant, it tells the story. 400 non-fastballs thrown to Adley this season, 12 hits. That's incredible. That's one talented guy, and he's fixable. I would expect him to figure it out. I think everybody expects that. But he is kind of the symbol of how this whole season has gone wrong in ways you would never have seen coming. And you're exactly right. This version of Adley Rutschman is not something that the Orioles can have going forward if they're going to do what they think they're going to do, because he's such an important piece.
You asked a question in there, Jayson, that I'll turn back to you. Does Mike Elias deserve the opportunity to see it through? I think they're inclined to let him, but I hate calling for people's jobs. It's hard for me to not look at this past offseason and say I am befuddled by what the plan is moving forward for the Baltimore Orioles and how this is going to get fixed.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I'm really not that guy
Yeah.
who goes on the air and says, "Time to fire everybody."
Right.
I don't really. I'm not a big fan of that. I like Mike. I think he's a really smart guy. He and Sig are both really smart people who have made so many smart decisions in multiple jobs for multiple teams, and that includes this team. And how they get to 100 wins, they wouldn't have gotten to 100 wins if he hadn't made those decisions. So how much of this is on him? How much of this is on ownership? They were in, obviously, ownership limbo for a long time. It's been a little surprising to much of the industry that you have a new billionaire owner who hasn't walked in and tried to make an impact with his billions. Instead, he's complained about the system, hasn't spent, hasn't authorized the kind of spending that you would think a team with this kind of window, with this core group, would have had. And I understand the revenue challenges in Baltimore.
Sure.
I do. But being the owner of a team like the Orioles carries an element of responsibility to the community, to the city, to the fan group, that when the time comes, you understand this is that time, this is that window, and you go outside your comfort zone to do what it takes because it reaps so many benefits. And that hasn't happened. So it's all part of it. Mike made some really questionable decisions this winter, but would he have made those decisions if he had more money to invest in the market? Ask yourself that.
I don't know. It's a tough one, right? Because publicly, the word has been, well, we're willing to spend the money. But I don't know. When I spoke to David Rubenstein, he deferred to Mike Elias and said he's the general manager of the year. Why would I think I know more about baseball than Mike Elias does? So it is difficult for me to get my head around what's going on here, Jayson. It really is tough because if you're the owner, if that's what you want, that's difficult.
Hey, the Orioles are one of the great mysteries of the baseball.
Oh, boy. But in the past, we could just blame it on the last owner. And that was
That's
as
right.
simple as that. Jayson,
Wasn't that convenient?
Oh, boy, wasn't it? Before I let you go, if I could, I wonder whenever they hire the manager, and I do agree that I think they're going to wait. Ryan Flaherty's name has been thrown around. My opinion is that the entire leadership structure here needs to be more balanced. And that the on-field manager needs to carry a little bit more weight. And because of that, I think this needs to be an experienced managerial hire, someone who has found success as a manager, who has a bit more cachet on day one of the job. Is that something that you think is important, or do you believe that a Ryan Flaherty type could carry that on day one despite not having any previous managerial experience?
No, I'm with you on that. I'm a big fan of Ryan Flaherty. I think he would be a great big league manager and will be at some point, but this is such a critical time in the life of this franchise. Do you want somebody who has not been there or done that? I don't think so. But then the question is, then who, right? I know Skip Schumacher's name is out there. I would hire Skip to manage my team in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's the manager in waiting in Texas. I don't know if this is going to be the last year for Bruce Bochy or next year is going to be the last year for Bruce Bochy, but they wanted to have that next guy lined up. So I'm not sure that Skip is looking to go anywhere because I think he's been promised he's that guy. You drop Buck Showalter's name.
Mm-hmm.
Buck raises the level of every room he enters and every team he manages. So I think he could help this team. I think he could help any team. He's one of my all-time favorites. I just don't know if you want to go with a guy at his age, his stage of life, although we've had a run now of veteran managers in that age bracket who have won a World Series, so it's worth thinking about. Here's another name that I would give you,
Okay.
David Ross.
Yep.
I thought David was really good at the whole managing gig in Chicago. I know he's taken some time to breathe right now, but I do think he'd be interested in a team like this, in a job like this. It caught my eye that he just signed up for that WBC coaching staff under Mark DeRosa, and having talked to Dero about it, he's not convinced that David won't get a managing job before they all show up in WBC spring training. So it's just a name to watch. I just think it's too early to handicap this because we don't know who's going to make the decision.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't. I can't read the future and whether this will be Mike Elias's call.
I think it's a very relevant question. And again, my thought is they need to kind of start making these decisions, but I understand that's my desire and not necessarily the way that it works. Jayson Stark, of course, The Athletic is where everyone sees and all of the wild stuff that you find every week throughout baseball that I always enjoy such a great deal. And at Jayson ST on Twitter. Is there anything else I can plug for you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm in the midst of this big all-quarter century team project.
Oh yeah,
I
made a joke. I made a joke about it on Twitter a couple weeks ago when you put out.
Yes, you did.
I did.
There's been a few. There's been some remarks about my choices.
No. Oh, I actually think you did a hell of a job. I just made a joke about how silly. I think I said, how silly is Jayson going to feel when he realized he left Felix P.A. off the list. But I think you've done. I actually think it's been a very good. I think you've done a very good job with it, honestly.
Yeah, you're the one who thinks so. I wrote the column, made my picks to start the conversation. The voting just closed, the fan voting. It's very interesting. So I'll have a piece coming out Monday, kind of reacting to how the fan choices differed from my choices, and then we're going to roll out a complete roster next week of this whole team, and we have other surprises coming.
Excellent.
So it's been a really fun thing to be part of.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Jayson, thank you for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it as always, my friend.
Yep, always enjoyed, Glenn. Thanks.
Jayson Stark from The Athletic with us here on GCR. All right, so this is where I gotta pull the curtain back a little bit. You guys might have never known otherwise. Peter Schmuck screwed it all up. He screwed our schedule up today. I want to blame Griffin, but it's not his fault. Like, trust me, it pains me to not be able to blame Griffin because
I can see it in your eyes.
Like 80% of the time, this was Peter Schmuck's fault. Now, we don't pay him, so that's sort of what it is. We had recorded with Jim Palmer before the show started today. We recorded this morning because he's got a schedule as he gets ready for a broadcast day, and that actually kind of got bumped up with the game being moved up. So we were going to try to air it around 10:30, and then that wasn't possible. And we talked to Jim for a while, so it wasn't going to fit into a small window. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the stuff that we normally do at the end of the show.
Okay.
Then we're going to talk to Jim Stagnitta, the coach of the Whipsnakes, and then we're going to wrap today's show by chatting with Jim Palmer, which was not the way that I wanted things to go because that's Jim Palmer. Like in the business, you want to make sure.
Kind of the A block.
Yeah,
right?
you want to kind of. Although some people will say, if you keep teasing Jim Palmer, you can keep people around. This is not what I was trying to do today. This was not me trying to rope a dope and saying, we'll talk to Jim Palmer at 10:40, maybe at 11:20. That's not what I wanted to do. Just the way that it works schedule-wise, and I don't want to cut out any of our conversation with Jim Palmer. So that's going to be the plan. We'll come back in. We'll do Tidbit and Tubular. Then we're going to chat with the head coach of the Whipsnakes. That's on the way. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we specialize in testosterone replacement therapy to help men boost energy, improve mood, and regain confidence. Our treatments, including testosterone cypionate, are safe, natural, and tailored to fit your lifestyle with weekly injections or pellet therapy. Get started today with a free testosterone test and feel the difference. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Game Day Men's Health, where men reclaim their game.
What makes the Costas Inn so special? This is Stan the Fan telling you that it's the people that work for you, cooking and serving. But that menu is also special with a capital S. Soups, salads, the raw bar, pasta dishes, seafood specialties, and entrees like the Costas combos, steaks, chops, ribs, amazingly delicious meatloaf, and all manner of delicious spilling sandwiches, including pit beef and turkey and subs. Of course, the steamed crabs are as good as you can get anywhere, and they serve them 12 months a year. The crab cakes are out of this world. Costas is open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and coming soon, very soon, Costas in Timonium at the OTB Parlor at Timonium Racecourse. We'll get you the opening date real soon.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the long road back from Tommy John surgery for Orioles closer Felix Bautista, as well as Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells. Also inside, we learn more about new Maryland basketball coach Buzz Williams from the players who have played for him at other stops. Plus, evaluators around baseball chime in on Orioles' top prospect Samuel Basayo. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as continue along on a Friday edition of the program. Still a lot to do before we get out of here today, and we're doing things a little bit out of order, as I mentioned. Just real quick, does what happened last night make you concerned? I don't know, it's concerns because I don't really care who wins the series, although I've said before I openly always root against New York teams. The Knicks won at home. Does that give them momentum that makes you feel like now all of a sudden, if you're the Pacers and you kind of dropped a dud, like a complete dud, really, last night?
Charles Barkley called it a must-win Game 6 for Indiana.
Yeah, I don't even know if I agree with that. Like, I know what he's saying, right? The idea is if you've lost back-to-back games and now have to go on the road, like, you're screwed. But Indiana won 2 games in New York already in the series. So I can't suggest that they couldn't figure out a way to win Game 7. They won Game 7 in New York last year. So I'm not going to agree that Game 6 is a must-win, but I understand why it feels that way, because that just feels like a lot for a team if that's where they end up being. But it was a dud. It wasn't just that they lost. They looked lifeless, and obviously, you know, after Tyrese Halliburton had one of the better games in playoff history a couple nights before, he was non-factor last night. I don't expect that to be the case again. He's far too good for that to be the case again. But, you know, your eyes are open. That this was a series I think everybody thought was over, and maybe that's not really the case. And the Knicks have already won a game in Indiana as well. So big one tomorrow night, Game 6 in the the Eastern Conference Finals. And then the Western Conference Finals, of course, Edmonton does close out Dallas. Just jumped on them early, scored 3 goals, and kind of never looked back. And you get the rematch. I did think it was fascinating, the Oilers choosing to touch the trophy this time around, like everybody going out of their way. So the superstition in hockey is that when you win the conference, you don't touch the trophy, because the trophy that you want is the one at the end when you win the Stanley Cup.
Wasn't that with the Ravens? Because they did all the like back in 2012 when they did all the promo stuff, and like Ray Lewis made sure no one touched the.
I don't remember that, but
Lombardi. Like they were doing like the promo. They do like the promo and like so like some of the 49ers players were touching it.
Oh, in the week leading up. Yeah,
Yes,
that might have been a thing. I don't remember that, but that might very well have been a thing. But it's different. Like they won this trophy. But last year, the Oilers players, like most hockey players, didn't touch it. You get a trophy for winning the conference. And a lot of hockey players just say, nope, not touching it because that's not the trophy that I want. I want the big one. And so because they did it a year ago, didn't touch the trophy and then lost the finals, because everybody's superstitious, they decided they were going to touch it this time. And so everyone did. It was almost like it was hilarious how all the guys skated over.
Well, the problem
and it was like Connor McDavid was telling him, touch it.
Well, the problem is Florida also did not touch. So Florida did not touch it last year. So 3 years ago, Florida did touch it and lost.
Okay.
Last year they didn't touch it.
Oh, okay. So this year they didn't touch it again?
They didn't touch it again this year.
Something's got to give. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
Or maybe this has nothing to do with who's going to win the series, which I find hard to believe.
I also find that hard to
believe. I don't think that's true whatsoever.
I think it'll just be a
think
tie
this is
now,
gonna
right?
that's the way it's going to go. They're going to play forever. That'll get underway Wednesday night in Edmonton for Game 1. So they will have home ice if it does go 7 in that series, like it did a year ago, although it went 7 in a very weird way with Florida winning 3, then Edmonton winning 3. So we'll see. Stanley Cup final is set as well. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of Pressbox, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms and the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. You can read it all. PressBoxOnline.com. Luke Jackson's great cover story about the hard road back for major elbow surgery. Go pick it up today.
This one came from TNT last night in the post game on inside the NBA. So Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson became just the third duo ever, the third set of teammates in NBA history to each score 20 points in the first 5 games of a conference finals.
Say that one more time.
So Kat and Jalen Brunson have scored 20 points,
Right.
and both of them have each scored 20 in each game, the first 5 games of the series. Only the third time that's happened in conference finals history.
A little surprising.
2 other sets of duos have scored each 20.
So was there a Lakers team involved?
There may have been 2, yeah.
Yeah, may 2. Was Kobe Bryant involved?
He was.
Was it Shaquille O'Neal?
It was Shaq and Kobe. In which Western Conference Finals? What year?
No, stop it.
2002, of course.
Of course, obviously, it was 2002. So Kobe was not involved with any others? So then the other one was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar involved?
No.
Was Lord Magic?
No, not Magic.
Who the hell would it have been if it wasn't? I mean, we have to go really far back on the other one?
Yeah, you got to go pretty far back.
Like, we're not talking about, like, George Mikan, are we?
Not quite that far back.
Elgin Baylor?
Elgin Baylor.
It's always Elgin Baylor. And Jerry West?
Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, yes, with the 1966 Lakers.
The other one?
Jalen Brunson and Cat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very
and
good.
then I had a quick. I feel like you should be able to knock this baseball one out quick.
Okay.
So let's do it.
I've heard this from you before.
Chris Sale became the fastest pitcher to ever record 2,500 strikeouts in his career last night.
Okay.
He is one of 7 active pitchers with 2,000 strikeouts.
Okay. Max Scherzer.
Scherzer has the second most among active guys.
Justin Verlander.
Verlander has the most among active MLB pitchers.
Kershaw.
Third most.
So those are the obvious ones.
Verlander, Scherzer, and Kershaw.
After that,
Sale will be 4th.
Boy. You're trying to figure out who's pitched the longest. Charlie Morton.
Orioles legends. Over 2,000 strikeouts in his career, 2,092 to be exact.
It's really what you're looking for here.
He said he wants to pitch until 2,500.
Oh, is that the reason why we're all
only
suffering?
400? He's only 408 away.
God. How about who else? Like the guys that you think of, you're like, no, they're not on this list yet. How about Lord? Yu Darvish?
Yu Darvish, yes.
Okay.
2007. So Yu is injured, so he has not pitched yet this year. The other guy has also not pitched yet this year. He is injured. I say yet. He is not going to pitch this year.
Garrett Cole.
Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole, 2,200.
Okay.
For Garrett Cole,
right.
Next closest, Aaron Nola, Kevin Gausman, both over 1,800 in their
Wow.
career. So
All right.
they'll be right up there.
All right. Very good. Wow. Let's get tubular. I was normally say to wind things down, but we are not winding things down. Let's just get tubular anyway.
Okay, everybody, it's going to be quick today.
What was the main focus today, Coach?
Fundamentals, ball control. It's always huge.
Any early thoughts on the competition this year?
Well, look, this is the best of the best players in the world. It's going to be an amazing tournament.
Tournament?
Yeah, the BMW Championship at Caves Valley. What are you guys talking about? All they ever ask me about is football.
Here's what's coming up this weekend, totally tubular-wise. Again, Orioles White Sox opener moved up to 4:30 this afternoon. Sean Burke, the former Terp, on the mound for the White Sox. Zach Eflin goes for the Birds, who used to be good. Be nice if he was good again. Or we don't care. I don't know. I don't know how we feel about the topic.
Do they want him to be bad?
I have no idea. But again, 4:30 for the opener today on Mass. And the rest of the series tomorrow at 4:05, Davis Martin and Dean Kramer. And Sunday at 1:35, Adrian Hauser and the aforementioned Charlie Morton. French Open coverage on TNT. I don't think Francis has not played yet today. Francis and Sebi Corder in the All-American matchup in round 3.
Tommy Paul held on, right?
He did.
Okay, good.
Dropped another set. He looked like he was in trouble again, but he figured it out.
He likes tennis. He likes playing. He likes playing
setter again.
As much as he possibly can.
Or second back-to-back now, 5-setters.
What's he to win it all? Should I put it in?
I would not. Nothing else really tonight. Tomorrow, as we're going to talk about, Whipsnakes open up the season. Rematch of the title against the Archers, 1 o'clock tomorrow on ABC from up in Albany, New York. Also tomorrow, the Champions League final. Intern Jake, who you got?
Who's playing again? Oh, wait.
Yeah, can you remember?
Come on.
Champions League final tomorrow. God. Ravens legend Odell Beckham apparently is going to be part of the David Beckham show. They're going to do the Beckham to Beckham thing.
DBB?
They're doing I guess they do a Manning.
Beckham squared?
They do like a Manning thing for the Champions League apparently, and it's with David Beckham, so it's
Odell Beckham's big
They're doing Beckham and Beckham tomorrow apparently.
Okay.
I did see that Odell
what
Beckham.
Channel's that? That's on
Odell
Paramount
Beckham
Plus?
was at the French Open this week.
Yeah.
So he's making his rounds this week.
Where's the Champions final? It's in
because they don't. Nobody.
New York
hosts
City,
it.
right?
No, I don't think. Hang on a second. Champions League final. It might be in Paris. Location is it's Munich Football Arena.
Okay, so
I'm guessing that's in Munich. I'm just gonna. I guess it'd be crazy if the Munich Football Arena was actually like in Warsaw. That would be nuts. But
he's looking up the soccer schedule. There we go. What do you got?
What Inter Milan and Paris Saint-Germain. Who you got?
PSG. How do you say that second one?
Paris
well, so the
Saint-Germain.
ESPN.
No.
ESPN has it listed at like their full name, Internacional.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Internacional.
Inter or PSG. That's who's in the Champions League final.
I gotta go PSG. They got a cooler logo.
Going Inter. You don't come through a semi like that to not win the title.
Unless you do.
Let's go Inter. That's tomorrow, 3 o'clock on CBS Sports Network.
LAFC is playing America on DAZN.
What?
Who's America?
Club America?
Yeah, Club America.
Yeah, Club America. Well, when does the Club World Cup starts next? Oh, no, 2 weeks, right?
I guess so.
We
What is the
figure out-
FIBA World Cup? The FIBA World Cup is different?
The FIFA World Cup.
FIBA. Oh, yeah, right. It's FIFA. Why did I
FIFA
say
is the Club World Cup. That's the. It's
Well,
the,
apparently
it's a World
LAFC
Cup, but for club teams. It's whatever. We're gonna do a pool, and that'll be for the. We'll do the coleslaw popsicles for that one.
Great.
Just make sure everybody knows.
Fantastic.
Make sure the whole crew knows. Tomorrow, TNT and True TV, after French Open coverage, Knicks-Pacers Game 6 tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, as the Knicks will try to force a decisive Game 7 on Monday. And, yeah, I think that's just about it for the weekend as far as stuff that actually matters. Anything non-sports-wise?
Really not a whole lot. On Apple TV Plus, we've got we got Bono, Stories of Surrender. Feature-length film with Bono telling the story of his life. It's like a one-man stage show where he'll be like singing and then also being like, I did this when I was.
Yeah,
I mean, it looked well done. If you're a Bono person,
love you too.
Peacock. There's really nothing. Dogman. Dogman is streaming this week on Peacock.
It is. Are there? My kid saw it in theaters. Are there any movies out this weekend? Like what is the deal with
March?
Why are we punting
May
on this
30th?
weekend?
I don't know. I don't know why. The one thing, there is an HBO movie, but it won't be out until tomorrow night.
Okay.
On HBO, and then I'm sure it'll be on HBO Max. Mountainhead. This is from Jesse Armstrong. He created Succession, And a group of 4 billionaire friends consisting of Steve Carell, Jason Schwartzman, and then 2 others who I don't know the actors, are vacationing in the mountains when the world falls into economic crisis.
Oh.
And apparently one of them created some AI which is responsible for the collapse of the world, and now it's up to them to do the right thing, which they're all ignorant billionaires. So well, they probably won't.
You're not selling me a lot on this.
The reading it doesn't sound as right.
Creator
Steve
of Succession.
Carell. Creator of Succession, Steve Carell.
Yeah. Okay.
And nothing else on this weekend, so that's your sell.
Wow, it's that bad.
Jeez. Because The Last of Us.
And no movies
over.
come out in theaters this weekend.
I mean, I'm sure something is, but nothing on
this.
my radar.
I saw a good horror movie coming out, but I'm blanking on this name right now.
What, like the new Conjuring? I feel like that's a while. I feel like that's 28 Days Later. I feel like that's July as well. Is Karate Kid today? Is that today?
Wow, this is depressing. Yeah, it is today.
Karate Kid's today. Bring Her Back. Is that the? That's
Back.
the one that you want. I mean, I'm not a horror movie guy. That's I'm out on that one for sure.
My kids, when we saw trailers for Karate Kid ahead.
Go see Lilo and Stitch. Everyone said that's great.
No, not everybody said that was great. It was kind of the opposite of that.
What? People don't like Lilo and Stitch?
Now my kids do the thumbs up, thumbs down thing with trailers for movies that I've done for my entire life, and they gave big thumbs up to Karate Kid, and I was like, you're going to have to find somebody else. You're going to have to find... I asked Mr. Griffin.
I'm sure.
Ask Mr. Griffin if he wants to take you to the theater, because I'm going to pass.
I mean,
I'm out on that one.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, I mean, it looks like they got...
Does it? Does it, though?
The tomato score, not great.
Yeah, not great.
No.
Not great for Karate Kid. And I don't think it was good for Lilo and Stitch either. Yeah, they definitely.
Yeah, I was joking about that.
Yeah,
one.
they definitely gave Lilo and Stitch a thumbs up.
Everything that's come out from Lilo
Man,
and Stitch
their
looks
marks
like a failure.
They put up thumbs up for even stuff they didn't even know anything about. What was there?
Maybe they'd Bring Her Back.
Was it a new Alien or Predator movie or something that Prey? Right? They're doing a Predator
Probably
movie. I think.
They do one of those every other.
And they know nothing about it, and they're just marks. They're like, yeah, that looks good too. We'll go to that one.
They'll see. They'll be excited for Jurassic World, right?
They will be excited for Jurassic World. I'm kind of. I was in on the first Chris Pratt Jurassic World movie, and the second one I was still like, okay.
This one's completely different. This is different.
Oh, like a new cast?
Whole new cast, yeah. I mean, it's Jurassic Park. I'm always going to be in for Jurassic Park no matter what.
But is this still where the dinosaurs are living in the world and we're...
No, this is they're on the island.
Oh, they're back to the island?
Yeah.
How do they get them all back to the island?
I don't know. You got to watch and find out. Mahershala Ali, ScarJo.
All right.
I don't know anybody else in the cast here, but yeah.
So we want to grab a break? Yep, let's do it.
Let's
we'll
grab
come back
a break.
in, schedule a chat with Jim Stagnitta next. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Baltimore's Classic 5 golf courses make golf fun and affordable. All 5 local courses, Pine Ridge, Mount Pleasant, Forest Park, Carroll Park, and Clifton Park, are challenging and fun for players of all skill levels. Book your tee time today at classic5golf.com.
Discover luxury without limits at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. This April, unlock a world of high fashion delights and exclusive style. Earn entries daily starting April 1st and join our drawing on Friday, April 25th. 19 will win up to $2,000 in cash and free play. And one grand prize winner will take home a curated Versace homeware collection. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Feeling sluggish, unfocused, or not like yourself? It could be low testosterone. At Game Day Men's Health, we specialize in testosterone replacement therapy to help men boost energy, improve mood, and regain confidence. Our treatments, including testosterone cypionate, are safe, natural, and tailored to fit your lifestyle with weekly injections or pellet therapy. Get started today with a free testosterone test and feel the difference. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Game Day Men's Health, where men reclaim their game.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the long road back from Tommy John surgery for Orioles closer Felix Bautista, as well as Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells. Also inside, we learn more about new Maryland basketball coach Buzz Williams from the players who have played for him at other stops. Plus, evaluators around baseball chime in on Orioles' top prospect Samuel Basayo. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressboxOnline.com. where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we are winding it down for a Friday edition of the program. Everything that you may have missed during championship season in high school sports, you can find by going to countysports.zone. That's countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. You missed who won certain championships, how things are going. You can find it all right now at countysports.zone. And still, all throughout the summer, everything when it comes to high school sports news. Any coaching changes and previews as you look ahead towards football season, you're going to find it countysports.zone. So countysports.zone, which, again, is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, before we get out of here today, we're going to talk to Jim Palmer, share some memories of Jim Henneman, and talk some Orioles with him as well. But before we do that, as I mentioned, it's time for the Maryland Whipsnakes to get their season underway. Whipsnakes open up the year tomorrow up in Albany, 1 o'clock on ABC as they take on the Utah Archers. Great to have with us back on the program the head coach of the Whipsnakes. He's Coach Jim Stagnitta, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn. Good to chat with you as always, my friend. Thank you for taking some time for us.
Hey, Glenn.
Everything good?
My pleasure.
How's everything up there?
Everything's good. Yeah, I've been living in a dorm for 8 days, but besides that, everything's good.
That's part of the joy of the job, though, isn't it? That's
absolutely. It's one of the perks.
That's why you keep signing up every year. You love that time. But there's nothing like the bonding time of that, right? Like, you guys got to rush to get a team together, man. That's got to be valuable.
No, that part's great. Right. It's more of the beds in the dining hall.
Yeah, that part. I can understand why that
I love being around the guys. That's the easy part.
Hey, Coach, when you find out, and maybe you're the one that makes the move, right? How does Rob Pennell end up a Maryland Whipsnake? And, like, what does that do when someone that is such an icon in this sport, when he shows up on day one, what does that do for the entire team?
Yeah, I mean, it's true free agency. You know, he gets to reach out. He gets to talk with clubs. He gets to talk with coaches. I just had happened to cross paths with him at a wedding in the off season, and he was, he said he was going to be a free agent, and I followed all the protocols. And when free agency opened up, I just, reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to have a conversation?" And we talked a lot about, his, where he is right now in his career, kind of who we are and how we kind of go about our business, where I saw him fitting in, where I saw, not just the value of his talent, but the value of his kind of experience and what he brings to the locker room and how he fits into, kind of our team and our culture. And again, I've known Rob since I was a college coach, and there's no question that he is a really talented player, but he brings all these other things to the table that, our guys, we there's a lot of turnover last year. We got younger in a hurry. We still have some vets, but they're really young guys in the middle of the field. And, Rob has an impact on, on everybody. I mean, there's a little bit of an awe factor when these young guys see him. It's Rob Pennell. You got to tell him, don't ask for his autograph, but, he can help you. And he's great for our locker room, and he's great for guys who've been around the league, right? He's had such great longevity and keeps himself in great shape and continues to evolve as a player, which you have to do to have longevity. And, he impacts guys like TJ Malone, but at the same time, he has an impact on someone like Matt Rambo.
I mean, I'll be the one to. Is he still Rob Pennell at this point in his career?
You know, and he's like a lot of guys as they evolve. You know, is either Rob Pennell of 10 years ago, no, but as his game has evolved and he's matured as a player, he does some things on a more consistent level than he had in the past. He's become in some ways more well-rounded, right? He can, he makes the guys around him better. He sees the field well. He gets in the right spots. And with us, he's done a lot more without the ball in his stick than he ever has because of, the way we're playing right now and the guys around him. So, I think that's the key to longevity in any sport at any level is how do you continue, to evolve and adjust your game to your skill and, as you age.
I was going to say, I guess that's a nice thing. Watching your team last year, you maybe don't really need Rob Pennell to be that version of Rob Pennell, given everything you have on the attack and how potent that was a year ago. But it's very cool for all of us that are nerdy lacrosse fans that Rob Pennell is a Maryland Whipsnake. Coach, what you guys were able to do, we talked about it last year, the run to make the championship. What do you think was most important from that you believe can carry over? And then what does it take to then close that gap, right? And like you're seeing the Archers tomorrow, but how do you take that proverbial next step this year to win the title?
Well, I don't think we were happy to be there, right? As we watched the film and we watch our game with the Archers, there's some things that, we let get out of our control. And, it's great to see that. And like any other situation like that, you can learn from it. And we did, and we'll learn, and we're getting better from it. What allowed us to go on that, honestly, what allowed us to go on that run was, a couple things. Obviously, we made some changes to the lineup during the year. It was a rebuilding year, and it just, it turned into, the season that it did. These young guys came through the door, and they added just this level of excitement to the older guys and a level of competitiveness. I'm a culture guy. I do it for a living. I work with, it's what my other job is. And, there's nothing more important to me to success than having, a great locker room. And we had a great locker room. When the season ended to a man, the guys said, I could keep playing. I'd come back next week if I could. And it was a combination of two things. Again, I think the young guys were revitalized. Or the older guys are revitalized. These young kids, Patras. I mean, what a great story he is. He's even better this year. He came back, and I know he's your guy.
That's
and
my
he's
guy.
been
I
terrific.
love him. I love him.
Right, and he's hard not to. And Levi, we picked him up late. He came through the door. Conrad, comes in and makes an impact right away. Our goalie got better as the season went on. He kind of got thrown in there. We played. The guys really trusted each other. And you hear all this stuff, right? But it's not really coach speak. The guys trusted each other. They deferred to each other. There was no selfishness. It was just, when the Whipsnakes are at their best, our locker room is dialed in, and we've got a great. It's carried over. We've had a really great training camp. Added some more new pieces. We have gotten younger. I mean, one of the things that made a difference last year. We made Matt Dunn a captain, and, Matt Dunn was a terrific captain. He got to look at the game through a different lens and got to see the whole field. And, that kind of brought our defense back together again, which has kind of always been our bread and butter. But it was the right combination of people and, just a great locker room and a group of guys who loved being with each other every weekend and trusted each other. And, any successful team is going to tell you it's kind of the same recipe.
And boy, what a stud Matt Dunn is, man. He's that guy. He's unbelievable. We're chatting with Jim Stagnitta, the head coach of the Whipsnakes here on GCR. Coach, have you decided on a goalie yet going into the season?
That's been a good one in camp, honestly, because it's been a hell of a competition. Emmett Carroll's a really talented kid. He fits right in, our locker room and how we play. At the same time, Krebs, took us to a championship last year. So it's going to be an ongoing, competition. It's, again, you got to look at this too from a standpoint of Krebs deserves the first opportunity.
Right.
And, it's his. But that being said, it's like when we had Bernlohr in the cage and Phipps as a backup. You can't go wrong either way, and everybody has a bad day or everybody has an off day. And it's nice to know that when you have one of those days, you have somebody there who's going to come in, like a relief pitcher, and is going to be able to hold them down for the rest of the game. So it's really nice to have both of them. Certainly Krebs, really rose and got better as the year went on last year, coming in a tough situation. But this kid's awful good too. So it's a nice problem to have.
You mentioned some of the new guys, kids coming in from the draft, and one of them, of course, on the local front that we'll be very interested in is Scott Smith from Hopkins, who a hell of a player. Like, I know that much. Why was that the fit for you? And is it fair to say that you guys still need a little bit more from your defense maybe this season than what we saw a year ago?
Our defense, again, has always been kind of our foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, do we need, what we need when you lose Michael Earhart, right? Number one, you lose some great leadership. And number two, you lose this, this force in the middle of the field that not only plays great defense, which a lot of the long poles in our league are more offensive minded. Mike gave us the best of both worlds. Scott Smith can do that. Like, Scott Smith gives us, when he does make his way into the lineup, he gives us a threat with the long stick. He's got that, you've probably seen enough of him, right? He's got a mean streak to him. So, which is nice to have. He's a competitor. He plays unbelievably hard. Probably got to reel him in a little bit at this level. And again, it's a little bit different when you play with as many talented guys around you. You're not expected to do as much. But we're really excited about him. He's a terrific athlete. He's tough as nails. In the scrimmages, he's picked up a ton of tough ground balls. And I think he shoots the ball really, really well. So he's gonna make an impact here sooner or later.
And then, we obviously were talking so much about Rob, but this is already a attack that had Rob and Matt Rambo and TJ Malone, who, we're still marveling about where you got him in last year's draft. But then you bring in Matt Brandow. Oh, and then Aiden Carroll on top of it. Like, my God, how deep are you at the attack? How's there enough to go around to get all these guys involved?
Well, the middle of our field, in the middle of the field, we are really deep. And, we're, in exchanging, trading Zed for Matt, Matt Brandow, we've been trying to become more of a ball movement, kind of a positionless offense. And this allows us to do that. And, another kid who's come back, Levi Anderson's gained about 15 pounds and a ton of confidence. So, Brandow right now is running at the midfield, but he has the ability to invert. He has the ability to wing dodge. What Rob brings to the table now is, with him and TJ, we have two really good feeders with great lacrosse IQs. And you have guys now, we look different. Matt Brandow's, got a great IQ. He's great with the ball. He's really good off the ball. So is Levi Anderson. And Patras is as good a cutter as you're going to find. So we look different, and we end up with guys all over the field, which I think hopefully will put a lot of pressure on other teams. So, like, the dynamic and diverse skill sets that all these guys have, we're going to look a little bit different. I think, a little more, just have just a lot more depth. And I think we have the ability to put a lot more pressure on people than we had the last couple of years.
Where is Jake's confidence level that he can beat out Jesse for who the favorite brother is, to make sure that Jarrett chooses to join you?
We're working on it. I asked Jake that this morning. I said, Jake, you got to tell me who's he like better. Because it's like when we used to say to my kids, right? My wife used to say, I love you the bluest and I love you the greenest. So it's kind of one of those things. I think, I think he cares about each of them, and they each have a little different relationship. But, obviously that's something that we, just threw another thing onto our plate here as we approach our first game.
I completely understand. This is one of those weird situations where you love the team that you have, you're going to love the team that you have. But this is Jared Bernhardt we're talking about. There's not a team
Absolutely.
on the planet. Like, you could have put together the U.S. national team, and you would still want to have Jared Bernhardt because we're just talking about a one-of-one type of talent that's now available.
I do not disagree with you on that.
Yeah, right. I understand. You got your guys. You're going to go coach them up and try to win some games. Early homecoming this year. We're just a couple of weeks away from the Whipsnakes playing here at Homewood Field in Baltimore, but the season does get underway tomorrow up in Albany as they take on the Archers. Big rematch game, 1 o'clock on ABC for those that want to check out the season opener. Coach Staggs, always appreciate you, sir. Great to spend some time with you this morning. Go get him, and looking forward to seeing you here in Baltimore in a couple weeks. All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of us, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Jim Stagnitta with us here on GCR. And it's killing Griffin because he's trying to coach up intern Jake, so he hasn't been able to do the thing at all this morning. He hasn't been able to do it once. What's that? You're okay. You're okay. You don't have to worry. Sometimes guys just hang up. It's okay.
Oh, no, I just want to know what thing I get to do.
Oh, no. Griffin, whenever we talk about...
You're a Whipsnakes fan, right?
Are you...
I mean, there's not really a team in Atlanta, so yeah, I'll rock with the Whipsnakes.
Okay,
all right, good. So you're gonna be doing our celebration, right? Like our
Griffin,
the Whipsnake sound.
Whenever we talk Whipsnakes,
dude,
yeah. Whenever we talk,
yeah.
Whenever we talk Whipsnakes,
I don't know what that reaction was.
So like on Monday when I do the weekend recap, and I'm like, hey, but the Whipsnakes open up the season with a big win over the Archers.
Me and him.
You got to do the hand motion though too.
Because look, this is the body of the snake. This is the head.
Alex, this is the.
So it's like you got to get the angle. The elbow and the wrist.
Yeah. And well, even if you hold them up with the other arm, since your mic's got to stand.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
And when they come to Homewood Field, it's no longer Homewood Field. It's the Snake Pit.
The Snake Pit.
Okay.
Yep. That's where we're going.
You guys gonna go to that? They got cheap tickets.
I've gone every year, so I'd be surprised.
What week is it again?
It's the third week of the season, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So very
it's
early.
like
yeah,
the 22nd, June 22nd, 23rd.
Don't see why I wouldn't be.
Let me make sure. Is it the third or the fourth weekend? Because this is the first weekend.
I had to schedule one of those
and
tabs.
So it's the fourth weekend. Fourth weekend, yes, June 21st and 22nd.
Okay.
I was right about the date.
Yes, you are right about that.
Click it again. Let me see what times they're playing. Let's see. We got
know,
Saturday at 7 p.m. Ooh,
yeah,
ESPN 2.
Much better that they're getting the night games because I got to tell you, those
last year was the hottest day of the year.
I legitimately thought I was going to pass out. I did not ask for the VIP treatment last year.
This time you will.
The straight shoot. This is the thing I am not above. Being like, hey, I can't wait to be there. But
parking spot.
Can I get a little bit of the old hooksy daisy? Can I get a little bit of that so that I can wander into the building and
you get one more pass?
Maybe get in
2 more passes for me and Griff.
So would that be your team, the Carolina Chaos, then, if we're going regionally? Or
no, I'm staying with the Whipsnakes.
Right, look at you. Good man. Good man. All right, we're going to talk to Jim Palmer to wrap up today's show, but I'll take a second now. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. Thanks to Stan the Fan Charles. Thanks to Peter Schmuck. Thanks to Jayson Stark, to Coach Jim Stagnitta, and to Jim Palmer, who we're about to hear from. We'll get all that up in the greatest hit section of the...
Let's go, Max. You're the best wrestler alive. Let's go, Max. You're the best wrestler alive. Thank you.
Shout out, Max. Griffin can't clap because he's holding his microphone this time. So, that was why I had to do the clapping for everybody. Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Don't forget Paul and Zach. No. Yeah, Paul and Zach.
Because it was Paul and Zach.
Yeah, and then it wasn't, but now it's a different Zach because it's Zach Moore. Yes, correct. I'm like, why does that sound wrong?
You made me question it.
Well, yeah, because I always said Paul and Zach for years.
No, it's not Zach.
And then it stopped being Paul and Zach, and then I was like, wait, but no, it is Paul and Zach. It's just the other Zach. I don't know why I screwed that up. They're with you Sunday night for the Bat Around at about 8:30. At the same locations, then we'll be back on Monday. Thanks to everybody at Pressbox, all of our great sponsors and partners, like Game Day Men's Health, Live Casino and Hotel, the BMW Championship, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Baltimore's Classic 5 Golf Courses, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costa Sin, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Thanks to intern Jake. Follow him on Instagram.
Intern Jake _.
No, you started a different Instagram.
Should I? I probably should now.
No, what's your, no,
Alex Wilson underscore.
Alex Wilson underscore. You still have your name is still your name. We're having fun with the intern Jake thing, but you can.
I like intern Jake.
Your name is
keep
still
your name.
Can you bring that to the booth next year?
Intern
when
Jake.
When you're calling the game?
When you score a goal.
Coming out number 13, Jake. Intern Jake.
Man, I don't know.
Please.
Intern
if that's
Jake
what
does it again.
That's what you want. It's no different than I've been calling you Alexander the entire time. It turns out no one does that. Got to talk to your coach, man. All right. Thanks to Alex for all of his hard work this week as well. Yeah, I know. Follow us on Twitter at Glenn Clark Radio or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, where we've been doing a lot more content recently. Probably maybe we need to get away from the 10-minute videos. They don't register the way that the other ones do. We got much bigger
those are
numbers.
I botched the spelling bee.
I don't think that's what I just
it's
think.
because you guys are a lot better at spelling than I am.
Yeah, you really screwed that.
Yeah.
We had a spelling bee in honor of the spelling bee final, but it went 10 minutes, and 10-minute
I heard the spelling bee final was good last. I did not.
If you say so.
Last year's runner-up won.
Hey!
So for him or her.
Got it back in blood.
That could bode well for the Whipsnakes. Right? Like, could be a big year
for
runners
so
up.
You think the Oilers are
Yeah,
winning
it might
this
be
year?
time. Might want to get your bets in on the Oilers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the parlay? What would the parlay look like?
Of
Of
the
last year's
Oilers,
spelling bee winner, Oilers
and Whipsnakes. I would still think you wouldn't get great odds there. Like, they're definitely still be among.
Well, yeah.
Oh, man, I know we're wrapping up, but I did see this real quick, and then that's it. I swear. Then we're done. I saw this and was
Everyone's
so confused
getting mad
by
with
it.
how long this show's.
I know, right? Well, it's been out of control this week. Rita shared
Well,
this.
we had a day off. We had a lot to talk about.
We're making up for it.
We just like spending time with everybody.
Apparently, FanDuel put out the odds for potential Super Bowl matchups.
I think it was like the Chuck B GBT.
The most likely Super Bowl matchup, according to FanDuel, is
no, don't tell me. Chiefs and Eagles.
That's the third most likely matchup at plus 2,400.
Chiefs and Commanders.
Commanders do not register in any of the top 8.
Yeah. Eagles. Eagles and the Bills.
That's the second favorite.
So it's going to be
plus
Eagles,
2,000.
Ravens.
Eagles, Ravens plus 1,800. But here's the weird part. Then they go to the Lions next. The first 3 are all Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one is the Lions
Chiefs.
plus 2,500 against the Bills.
Oh.
So the Bills are the second favorite to face the Eagles. Why are they more likely to face the Lions?
Well, because
than the Ravens at plus 2,700. This makes no sense.
Well, because everyone knows the NFL is rigged, and so if they were,
if it's the Lions, it's got to be the Rust Belt Bowl. Like,
yeah,
it's so weird.
Precisely,
that that's the case. And then the most likely opponent for the Rams is also the Bills, and not the Ravens are only the most likely opponent for the Eagles uniquely. It's very weird. I don't know what to make of those odds.
The Eagles better hope they don't see us in the Super Bowl.
Thank you. Oh, us? Who's us?
The Ravens?
I thought you were. Are you a Ravens fan?
I mean, right now I am.
Okay, because you work here.
You were wearing.
And then we're gonna see him in.
You were wearing a Falcons sweatshirt the other day.
It's still in my backpack right there.
Yeah, it's us. All right, we're gonna wrap up for the week. We'll wrap up the week. We had to do this a little bit earlier on this morning, but an opportunity to catch up with the great Jim Palmer right here on GCR. Well, we've been celebrating the life of our friend Jim Henneman this morning here on GCR, and joining us now to continue that, there was some. Tim Kirkshin spoke last night at Jim's funeral, and he mentioned, hey, how many people have Hall of Famers show up to be there to celebrate you? And I got to be honest, I wonder if Jim didn't know that Jim Palmer was going to be in town this week, so it was the right week. I couldn't help but think about it. Hall of Famer Jim Palmer with us this morning here on GCR. Jim, it's Glenn. I wish we weren't doing it like this, but I always appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I mean, certainly it was a sad moment yesterday. I mean, I did go up, and well, it's funny, I was really young when I went to Arizona State, and I was a freshman, and my best friend, who's now published to the Seattle Times, says, we should join a fraternity, so we became Sigma Chi's. And, of course, I only went to, Arizona State about 2 semesters. But I always thought, and I really sensed it yesterday, that, baseball and people that have been around the game, I mean, Jim, I don't know. He died at 89. it seems like he'd been there forever, seven decades, or I don't know. I've read some other place 8, but I'm going, well, where did he start when he was 9? I don't know. but the amazing thing is that you go to that, and I didn't realize he had so many brothers. And I mean, I met an ex-wife, and I met his wife, and I met cousins and brothers. I mean, and then all people came that used to be PR people here, and Rick Vaughn came up from Florida, and he was here, and then he went over with the Redskins, and then he was with the Rays, and so there was just baseball people galore, and I don't think people realize the kind of relationship that we had back in those years with baseball writers. And Jim wrote for the Sun, and he wrote for the News American, Press Box, and of course he was a scorer for years and years and years. But they used to travel with us. We'd go to lunch with them and whatever. I mean, what do they call it now? Where writers want clicks and all that kind of stuff. Jim Henneman wasn't a click type of guy. Yeah. I mean, he was straightforward, loved baseball. Played baseball at Calvert Hall and then Loyola, and I mean, he was nice enough to ask me to write the preface for the book he wrote, 60 Years of Oriole Magic. And I was looking through it the last couple of days, and I mean, it's a remarkable book. And I'm looking, I'm going, geez, I don't even know if there's anything about him in the book. And that kind of, to me, shows what Jim Henneman was about. He loved baseball. He loved the people. He earned respect because he was so fair and knowledgeable and all those kind of things. And, years ago I was on the Phil Donahue show, and he asked me about writers. He said, well, do you have to be careful if you have confrontations? And, there were some that I did. And I talked to him about a guy, Milton Richmond, who was the UP writer. His brother, Arthur, was PR for the Yankees and the Mets for years and years and years. And I said, Milton once did an interview, and when I was talking to him, he said, hey, wait a minute. I want to make sure I understand what you're trying to say. Well, that was Jim Henneman, And, so, again, it's easy to like him. He was a likable guy. He earned his respect. He gave respect. It was the mutuality of being friends and whatever. And you can't always say that about sports writers. When I was texting, because I was off for 2 weeks, and I was talking to his son, Chris, or texting with his son, and I talked to him on the phone, and I said, listen, I'm getting back Saturday night. Dean Albany, who was a longtime scout with the Orioles, and really dear friend of Jim's, and now with the Phillies, was scout of the year a couple of years ago for them. I said, we're going to go up there Sunday morning. And as it turns out, he passed on Saturday night. So, I had a chance to go up there yesterday, and, it really did a nice job with all the pictures and, whatever. But it was, you never want to see anybody, pass. But it kind of takes me back to a couple of years ago when Brooks passed away, and they had the memorial at Camden Yards. And, it's funny, you're sitting there and you're saying, it would be the same thing with Jim. You're going, nobody had to make anything up.
Nope.
Nobody had to, tell some lies or whatever. God, he was a great guy. Well, when he wasn't. Because Brooks, was one of the, and Jim was, he obviously didn't play third base as well as Brooks did. But, he was just a great guy in baseball. And, he loved it. And that's the old days. You used to go to the ballpark when they actually had scouts that, you'd go into the press room and you'd have a conversation and you'd learn about another team and players, and you'd talk about baseball, or you talk about the night, that night's game, or the game the night, like today, I don't know if Steve Stone's doing the games, but I'll go in and,
Sure.
Stoney, he'll come into our booth. So Jim was always part of that fraternity. And so, he'll really be missed in, what he represented to baseball writers. He was the president of the Baseball Writers of America for years and all that, but for the Hall of Fame. So he was a real special guy.
One of the things that struck me, and you alluded to it in what you just said, Jim, but Tim brought it up, that it wasn't just you guys, right? Like the way that he made all of us his friend. I remember the first time, I'm younger. I don't think I get to qualify as young anymore, but I'm younger. And I remember the first time I got a message from Jim that said, "Glenn, I really enjoyed what you wrote." And I just sort of it stopped me in my tracks. I said, "Wait, you're Jim Henneman. Like, you don't have to do that." And he would do it all the time. And he would take every single person that came into that press box under his wings. It just didn't matter who you were. He was a friend to everyone.
Well, maybe that's why they named the press box after him.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. Yeah, it was interesting because when I ran into so many people that, it's not the reason you want to run into all these people, but it was really a nice moment. I mean, other than the fact that the Beltway was, impossibly closed, and the fact I had to go through the city, when all the kids were getting out of school, it was really a remarkable afternoon. I mean, again, you wish that moment never happened, but he just had a sense, and I kind of reread an article that he had written about Brooks and how he cried and how he said, there was the humility that, listen, I don't profess to know how you feel, but if you knew Brooks and whatever the way it was, like I did, you'd probably feel the same way I do. And that we miss him and we love him, and I tell it all the time, whether it's Jim Hennemans of the world or the Brooks Robinsons of the world. Guys like that don't come along all the time. No. They're great people. Brooksy was as good off the field as he was on, and Jim. I'm sure if you talk to him, and I met so many of like 55 of them running around yesterday. I'm sure his whole family would tell you the same thing. And so again, special human being. He'll be greatly missed because he did so many things and meant so much to people. And it's kind of like when people say you do radio and you go, you were our eyes and our ears all those years. And I thought, for people that love baseball, and we have so many great fans in Baltimore, Jim was a huge part of that. And, it's great how good he was at what he was, but you just don't run into people like him very often.
This one's the important one, Jim Palmer, because I did not know about the barbecues. That was something that I learned about the last couple of days. How good of a chef was Jim Henneman?
Well, I'm a simple eater.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's right. You don't eat fried chicken. We learned that about you.
No, I don't eat. I don't. Well, I've eaten some fried chicken, but I take a knife and a fork and I cut through the skin and I just eat the white part. I don't eat chicken wings, and the way the Orioles are hitting this year with their scoring division numbers, I said if they hit another grand slam while I'm broadcasting, I will come up with a chicken wing, which I know they have to have it either on the road or especially at Camden Yards.
They got to work on that at some point. They got to make that happen for you. He is the great Jim Palmer. He's with us here on GCR. Jim, I guess I should ask, right, as you're around the team at this moment, what do you sense is most important for them in making this choice about who their next manager is going to be? What's the most important thing that they need to address during this search?
Well, I mean, if you're Michael Ash, you want your guys to get healthy. The Orioles were arguably the best team in baseball going into early July last year. And, they lost Westberg. Grayson Rodriguez didn't pitch the last couple of months. Had all kinds of injuries. We had the Bradish, the Wells, John Means, all those guys were out. Batista was out. So you had the best reliever in the American League in 23 when they won 101 games, not available at all last year. So, and that's when they started playing poorly. Adley Rutschman, that's one of the big questions that I get is, what's going on with Adley? And the morning papers talking about did they drop him down in the lineup? And probably they don't now because you'd like to have him hitting, in front of Gunnar Henderson. That's pretty advantageous a place to be hitting. But, so Adley had, I think, hit 132 in August, and whatever, and it was just a weird year. But I mean, if I'm Mike Elias, number one, need to get my guys healthy. Number two, when you're playing teams almost every night that they hit better than you and they pitch better than you, it's really hard to win games, And I mean, I have my scorecard on the desk here. The Orioles are 19-36, and they're playing the White Sox. White Sox are 18-38. Now the White Sox do not score a lot of runs. They score a little bit over 3 on the road. They're 6-32 on the road, but they pitch better than the Orioles, both home and road. So that has to change. Charlie Morton. I think we
This
saw.
call will be recorded.
It's all right, Jim.
This call is no longer being recorded.
Sorry about that. I have no idea. My phone.
My phone's been doing the same thing recently, Jim.
Well, it has a mind of its own.
Yeah, correct.
So the bottom line is, listen, Brandon. I did Mike Bordy's podcast, and Peter Angelos asked me to manage 3 times, and I told him, managers get fired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm undefeated in the broadcast booth. I do my work. I do my preparation. I talk to people, try to go down the field, try to do all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Brandon Hyde won 101 in 91 games, and Buck Showalter, kind of turned the franchise around, and so forth and whatever. And then all of a sudden, a manager year, 3 different decades. And all of a sudden, he goes to the Mets. He wins 101 games. The next year, they're under 500. Now, did he forget how to manage?
Right.
Or did the players? And this year is a year of change. Again, not to be critical of Michael Elias, but reality is, they changed hitting coaches. Now, I don't know if they left on their own. I think both Schulte went back to the Twins, where he's done a great job, because that's where he came from. Ryan Fuller was, Double-A hitting instructor. Don Long, 30-30 guy with Mullins, and Mount Kessler had more home runs than any rookie in the American League. They let him go because they didn't want to lose Ryan Fuller. Maybe you could have brought him up as an assistant, but he's no longer here. He's the director of hitting for the White Sox. And when I do my homework for the White Sox, he's an integral part of their offense. They have a lot of young players. He's gone. Freddie Gonzalez, bench coach, he's gone. Your trainer's gone. You get Tyler O'Neill. You're hoping he's going to do what he did last year, which is the 31 home runs, and he's missed more games than Santander missed in 3 years. You can go down the list. It's been I thought this was a year where we'll find out if Colton Cowsers, can play every day and hit lefties. He's a gifted player. He's what you want in a number one guy, smart and energetic, runs every ball out. He can play center field, he can play left field. But he didn't hit lefties well. With runners in scoring position particularly well. Didn't hit well with runners at third and less than 2 outs. But again, that was his first year. Struck out 172 times. So you want to see, because I always thought the window, because you're going to get Bradish and Wells back, and was 2026. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't have a good team, but I thought, if you're going to really be good, Bradish was one of the 4th best pitchers in the American League back in 2023. So you missed him all year long, and he's a number one guy. They just he's got a great slider, curveball, and all that. And hopefully he'll come back from the Tommy John and be that. So again, it's just a difficult year. Westberg got hurt last year. They didn't play well the second half. Westberg got hurt this year. They haven't played well really since he's been out. So Hearn's having a special year because he's a special guy. He's got an edge. He's like he's like a lot of the guys that used to try to get out, George Brett or Keith Hernandez, who don't like to make outs. Lou Piniella, every at bat is a world war, and that's kind of what you want. So, so I don't know if it's about the manager. I think it's about the fact that, and then the pitching. Could we maybe throw a ball low and away? That's all. And you saw it the other day. Povich strikes out 6 of the first 9. And the Cardinals have a good team. They now have won, 18 of 23 games. So they're 18-5. They won more games than National League than any team in May, or late April. So they made some great adjustments, and he made horrible pitches.
No question.
So it's just, and, if you're going to put the glove in the middle of the plate, I would not be in the Hall of Fame. I would not have had a 2.86 ERA. Cuellar wouldn't have won 147 games in 7 years. McNally wouldn't have won 20 games 4 straight years. Stanley wouldn't have won a Cy Young in 1979. Stoney wouldn't have gone 25-7. Well, maybe he would have. Good, he sold his soul to the devil throwing curveballs. But at the end of the day, again, so back to your question, you want to get a good manager. And in the podcast, I said, listen, all you want to do, and Tony Mansell, he knows baseball. I go down to the Merritt, what's left of it after the tornado, and work out pretty much every day, and I come back and I listen to 105.7, and they're ragging Tony for his press conferences and all that, and whatever. Hey, listen, all I know is when Cal Ripken Jr. tells me, he reminds me when he talks about baseball like his father. He knows baseball. So that's the ultimate compliment. So if you want to be critical, that's fine. You know what? You want to make him a good manager? You know what made Earl Weaver a good manager? Brooks.
Yeah,
Frank,
really great players.
420 game winners and all that. Yeah, and everybody jokes. They go, 1971, which 20 game winner do I want to start tonight?
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Yeah, it does. So,
there's no
so
doubt.
Again, if there's no quick fix, the Orioles have to get better. And, they have to get some guys healthy. And, and I don't know if they're going to get back in the race. Probably not. But you know what? Maybe they'll put a stretch run like the Orioles did on a team I played with that was 8 back in, late August and won 28-6. We had a 2.07 ERA in the month of September. Now, I don't know if they can do that, but, and you go to the ballpark every day, which is what they've done the last 2 years, and somebody helps you win. This year, a lot of guys aren't in that position to do.
Jim, I know I want to keep you too much longer, but I just want to run by you. If you brought up Buck Showalter's name, if they do end up hiring a manager and it's not Tony, not just Buck, but also Ryan Flaherty's name has come up a lot, almost based on what he learned about the game from Buck. I wonder what you would think of either a Buck reunion in Baltimore. You of course know it didn't go quite so well for Earl when he came back the second time, or how much Ryan Flaherty might make sense to you as someone that is ready maybe for a job like this.
Well, it's funny. Michael is a pretty smart guy. We know he went to Yale and all that, but I thought his comments when he had to let, or he chose to let Brandon Hyde go, was, hey, we need to make a total assessment of our minor leagues. It's great. I've been reading about how they develop pitchers. One pitcher, that was Brandon Young, who now has a shoulder problem. That's the only pitcher that's come through the minor leagues to pitch at the major league level since 2019. So when I do my pitching charts, like whether it's the White Sox or it was just the Cardinals or, whatever, I'm going, I'm looking at, guys and all that. And let's see, Brandon Eisert started with the Jays in 2019. He was the 537 pick. He's pitching in the big leagues. Geez. Now, Jared Schuster, okay, he was in the first round with the Braves. You could go down. Jordan Leeser is one of their relievers, 14th round, 432nd. So the Orioles have to get better at developing pitchers. We found out that, Cal Ripken Sr., my first manager, used to say, guys they're suspects in their prospects. When you look at a minor leaguer, and the Orioles have a lot of prospects. But I've found out from being around baseball for 60 years that when a prospect comes to the big leagues, he's suspect until he proves he can play.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's all about player development. It's all about developing, and the minor leagues aren't what they used to be because of all the injuries. You got AA pitchers pitching in AAA. You have a lot of guys because of arm injuries and whatever. So, they just if whoever they're going to, and whatever Mike decides to do is what are they going to do in the minor leagues to maybe better develop the players to come up here? And that's nothing that other good organizations aren't trying to do. So, that I think that's where the future is. And the great thing about if you read The Last Manager, the book by John Miller about Earl, it talks about how our organization, and they talk about what the Orioles that I played on, you learned exactly in A-ball, what they were doing in the big leagues. So maybe that has to change a little bit. And, again, hopefully so whoever manages has to have a great knowledge and also the power to, and that's what Buck had was, hey, we're going to do it here in Baltimore, but we're also going to do it in, Chesapeake, and we're going to do it in Delmarva, and we're going to do it in Aberdeen. So when a guy comes to the big leagues, he knows how to play winning baseball. And,
if I could wrap with this, Jim, you mentioned Adley Rutschman earlier, and we all know the struggles he's been through. Are you still certain that he can be Adley Rutschman again? Like I feel like it's just puzzling how it's gotten kind of this bad in such a short amount of time.
Well, again, I made my living looking at hitters. Now it's funny. I was reading some of the comments by Ryan Fuller, our hitting instructor, who, as I mentioned, is now with Chicago, and I think they send one of their number one draft choices, Vaughn, back out, and they said, well, he's got to have a reset. But they have so much, analytics are probably good. If Stig Mejdal for the Orioles, who's the head of analytics, they must have some numbers, some metrics on what Ryan Mountcastle did when he hit 33 home runs, in 2021. They have to biomechanically have it. They have to do whatever. So why wouldn't you go back to that? Adley Rutschman, Adley was having a great year till, July last year.
Yep.
Made the All-Star team, had 16 home runs. I think, hit 3 the second half. Batting average, plummeted, especially in that month. I always thought his swing changed a little bit since the home run hitting contest, maybe a little bit more elevation. But the Orioles, they have all these ways to measure that. Now, to your point, is Adley going to be the player he was, coming up in 22 and, in 23? I don't know. We just had Nolan Arenado come in with close to 400 home runs, saying, I don't know if and he's older, obviously a lot older, but he goes, I don't know if I'll ever be the same player. The interesting thing to me was every time I'd won a game, they took it away. And then I had to go back out there and, 4 days later and prove I could pitch. It's like owning a restaurant. You have the chef shows up on time. He doesn't get stuck in traffic. All the produce comes. The maitre d' doesn't get in an argument with his wife, and Friday's great. And then Saturday, the traffic, the produce doesn't come. The maitre d' gets in an argument with his wife, and that's the night the food critic comes in. I always thought, so that's kind of what Adley's going through. Great expectations. I remember, what did Cowser do? Cowser got more upright, got his hands away from him. We've seen Jackson Holiday already this year. Dad said, hey, get the bat more vertical. They worked on getting his hands away from his body. And pretty solid player. He's been their best hitter in May. And if you look at the numbers, which I did yesterday on the off day, he hits fastball, curves, balls, and changeups the same. When you're hitting almost 280 and all the, on all 3 pitches, that tells me you're pretty tough out. Now, he doesn't hit lefties very well, so maybe it'll be interesting to see how they play him when Westberg gets back, because you still have Urias, who's one of the, he's like a hired assassin. You never know when he's going to do something to help you win, So, so it's an interesting, to me, it's an intriguing year. And if, obviously the Orioles, they've played 55 games. You think they wanted to be 19 and 36? No. but you do have the rest of the season to get ready, to win as many games as you can and get ready for, 2026. And that's what they did in 1988 when they lost the first 21 games of the season. They traded for Brady Anderson. They got Devereaux the next spring, and they went down to the final weekend in competition to win the American League East. So that's what this summer's about. And, they'll get guys back. They'll be a better team. How much better, and who's going to manage it? What to be continued.
Yep. Jim Palmer, it's always a thrill every time we get to chat with you, my friend, and I know it's not the way that we wanted to start it, but there's nothing like talking about the great Jim Henneman as well.
We all had him in our life,
yep.
And that's, that's what would life be when you don't have people like that.
No question.
Really what it comes down to.
Jim Palmer.
Okay, I'm going to the Merit and do a pump tomorrow. I'll talk to you.
We'll see you on TV. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, you got it.